Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel's Unlimited Upgrade System. Chapter 41. Oh, there are a few brushes. I suddenly don't want to kill you. Is the kid interested in working with me? As long as the two of us join forces, this world will surely crawl under our feet. The Green Goblin laughed arrogantly. Oh, you really don't know the height of the sky, and you are also worthy. Locke seems to have heard the funniest joke in the world. The Marvel world has never lacked strong people, and one after another cosmic-level characters appear, and city-level villains like Green Goblin don't know how to die. Since you don't agree, then you will die. The Green Goblin shouted angrily, and then with a wave of his big hand, another pumpkin bomb flew out at a gallop. Seeing this, Locke did not continue to dodge this time, but held the Schwanti Meow knife and slashed towards the position where the bomb flew in. Suddenly, a purple electric light flew out, so fast that it could not be seen with the naked eye, and then hit the bomb fiercely. Boom! With a loud bang, the pumpkin bomb exploded. Suddenly, the powerful explosion power burst out, flying sand and stones in an instant, and the shock wave was turbulent. After detonating the Green Goblin's pumpkin bomb with the power of lightning, Locke's figure was like a gust of wind and rushed towards the Green Goblin. He stepped on the void as if he were walking on the ground, and his speed was extremely fast. The Green Goblin never expected that Locke could still step on the divine means of the void, and he couldn't help but be surprised, and contributed 266 points of surprise to Locke. Then he stepped on his glider to avoid Locke's sudden attack. But at this moment, Locke held a special pistol and shot the glider wing at the feet of the Green Goblin, and suddenly the bullet directly pierced the glider wing with a strong impact. One shot did not stop. Locke continued to fire. His pistol has an automatic reloading function, all once fired, just like a machine gun, cannot stop at all. Shot after shot, the gliding wing of the Green Goblin suddenly became a scrap full of holes. Not only that, the miniature missile mounted on the glider wing was also hit by Locke's bullet and was about to explode. Seeing this, the Green Goblin couldn't help but be surprised, and he immediately jumped off the glider wing without thinking, and fell heavily on the hard ground. And in this instant, the glider wing exploded on the spot with a boom, directly turning into powder. Without this equipment, I see how you fight me. Locke sneered, and quickly rushed towards the Green Goblin with his saber in hand. Break the front. Locke drank deeply, and used the first form of the 8 Wilderness 6 combined knife, and it also carried the thunder and lightning attribute. Suddenly, a huge purple electric light slashed at the Green Goblin's armor with a powerful force, and the powerful power burst out, and under the sword, the Green Goblin was like a kite with a broken line, and flew out directly upside down. Suddenly, the armor cracked, and a deep bone wound appeared on the Green Devil's body, which looked very terrifying. Miscellaneous, you dare to hurt me. The Green Goblin didn't expect that Locke's means were so much, and he actually made him suffer such a big loss, and he couldn't help but roar angrily. Why not only hurt you? Today I will take your dog's life and make you completely disappear from this world. Locke said viciously. The sneak attack just now made him extremely angry, and he couldn't wait to unload the Green Devil. And just when Locke really planned to do this, he saw the corner of the Green Devil's bloody mouth pull up a sly smile. Before Locke could figure out what his smile was about, suddenly a huge cannon barrel quickly protruded from the ground, and then with a loud bang, a cannon flew fiercely. Because the distance was too close, and Locke's attention was focused on the Green Goblin at the moment, he didn't notice the ambush. Suddenly, the shell rumbled and hit Locke's body fiercely. Suddenly, the violent explosion power directly blasted Locke out, and suddenly he was smashed into the house in the base like a mess, and the entire wall collapsed. This knife wound on my body, I will never forget. You wait, the next time we meet will be when I take your dog's life. The Green Goblin covered his wounds, his face rather weak. At this time, a new glider flew out of the laboratory automatically, and then took the Green Goblin away, and the whole process took less than 10 seconds. Looking at the fleeing Green Goblin, Locke's face was gloomy, and his heart was angry. The cannon directly smashed his clothes, and at this moment his chest was full of shrapnel wounds, which looked quite terrifying. However, his physical strength is far beyond ordinary people, and his self-healing ability is also extraordinary. Just in such a short time, those small wounds have healed. Compared with his injuries, the Green Goblin is obviously much more serious. If it weren't for the armor with amazing defense, the Green Goblin at this moment would have already landed on the ground. And even if he is lucky enough to escape now, he will have to spend a lot of time recuperating, and in the short term, the Green Goblin will not be able to jump. Paralysis, this loser will definitely be doubled, you just wait for me to hunt down. The Green Goblin has completely formed a vendetta with Locke, and he naturally will not let him go so easily. But now it is a bit of a suspicion to chase and kill. The Green Goblin is not much worse than Locke in terms of physical fitness and weapons and equipment, and some equipment is even more powerful than Locke. With Locke's current strength, if he really chases and kills the Green Goblin, I am afraid that it will not be so easy to kill him, so what he has to do next is to continue to strengthen himself. Locke naturally knew this, and as soon as his body felt better, he immediately got up from the ruins. At this moment, a loud siren sounded from outside the base, and at the same time, the remaining guards in the base also rushed towards Locke. Seeing this, Locke dragged his injured body and immediately used his ability to step on the air, quickly escaped from the base, and went all the way to the residential area in the distance. At this moment, although he was injured a lot, his speed of movement was by no means comparable to that of ordinary people, and in just a few moments he rushed into a rather dilapidated residential area, and then the clothes on his body changed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he changed back to his high school appearance, so far from the black-clad masked man, he believed no one could recognize him. I didn't expect that the first time I fought with a villain, I suffered such a big loss. It seems that I have to be more cautious in the future. The Marvel world is full of crises, and it always doesn't hurt to be careful. Having suffered such a big loss, Locke immediately learned his lesson. While covering the wounds on his body, Locke quickly rushed towards the location of the house. Today he made an appointment with Alice. The two were just tired of being crooked. If this would release someone else's pigeon, how would he eat it for him in the future? But at this moment, he heard a terrified cry for help coming from not far away, and it was a female voice calling for help. Locke couldn't help but be stunned, and then he saw that not far in front of him, several black men were talking dirty and ugly things around a woman. "Mr. Landlord, please give me a little time to slow down. Tomorrow the hospital will pay salary. I promise to give you rent tomorrow, please." A blonde white woman pleaded with a tall black man in front of her. "I said, beautiful nurse sister, you have been saying this for months. Now what about the money?" I will really pay my salary tomorrow, and I will give it to you tomorrow. Please give it another day. Just one day," the woman begged. "Hey, the opportunity has not been given to you, and now you still want the opportunity, but it will cost you. I think you chick looks good. Why don't you stay with me for a few days? If you serve me well, I will not charge you a penny, and the house here will live with you in the future." The black man standing at the front lifted the woman's chin and said with a lewd look, No, I'm not that kind of woman. I can't grant your request. Please let me go," the woman begged, looking at her almost crying. "Haha, not that kind of woman. Then pay the rent. If you don't pay, you will use your body to pay off the debt. Come out to mix with society. Don't you even understand this rule?" Quote, I won't have money until tomorrow. Quote, "Then don't talk nonsense with you. Come, drag her to my room. I'll be refreshed tonight. Don't worry, I will definitely make you refreshed, and then you will beg for it. Who hasn't had a first time?" the black man said with a smile and winked at the men around him. Seeing this, the black men immediately laughed lewdly, and then tried to grab the woman's arms and legs, and then wanted to kidnap her. But at this moment, a majestic male voice suddenly sounded. "Hey, how many men bully a woman to make a face?" The person who spoke was naturally Locke, who happened to be passing by. "Haha, where did the stupid student appear? Boy, you better run quickly, otherwise we will destroy you." The black man who took the lead looked at Locke Dow, who was wearing a tracksuit, with a sneer. At this time, Locke's dress looks like a harmless high school student, so these gangsters are naturally unscrupulous and fearless. "Is it? I think it's better for you to escape quickly, or I will destroy you," Locke said with a sneer, and then walked towards them step by step. "Boy, you're looking for death." The black leader glanced at the few subordinates around him, and suddenly the black men twisted their necks and walked towards Locke with a sinister smile. "Kill him," several blacks roared and moved their hands with Locke. Although these blacks are stronger than ordinary people, how can they be Locke's opponents? And before they can make a move, Locke's fist turned into an afterimage and bombarded their bodies. Suddenly, the four black big hands were like dead dogs, covering their stomachs and falling to the ground in pain, struggling and wailing, where there was still the slightest combat power. The black leader didn't expect Locke to be so powerful, and he couldn't help but look horrified, and then retreated again and again, wanting to escape. At the same time, a series of astonishment values also flew in front of Locke's eyes. Amazing value plus 335 from Spart. Plus 421 praise from Ramenfeel. Ramenfeel. This name is so familiar, it seems to have been seen somewhere. I remembered, isn't this the female nurse who insulted me in the hospital? It's really a coincidence, this vast sea of people actually let me meet again. Looking at the words floating in front of him, Locke looked stunned. Suddenly, he remembered what happened in Maria's hospital when he had just crossed over, and his virginity was almost taken away by this woman. Beautiful nurse sister, I didn't expect us to meet again, Locke said to Ramenfeel with a smile as he kicked the black man who was trying to escape to the ground. Boy, you dare to kick me, do you know who I am? I'm the bearer of this street. Kicked to the ground, the black man shouted in horror. But as soon as he finished speaking, Locke waved his big hand, and suddenly a special pistol appeared in his hand, and then coldly pressed it on the black man's forehead. Carry the handle, huh? Come and see if you can stop the bullets. Locke slapped the black man in the face and then scoffed. Don't, the little brother has something to say, there is something to say, everyone is a civilized person, don't use a knife and a gun. I just collected a rent, and I didn't really plan to do anything to her. Being pointed at by the gloomy muzzle, the black man was immediately intimidated. Where did he dare to be arrogant? Didn't think about it. If I hadn't come, you'd be about to carry people home, and say that it wasn't okay. Believe it or not, I shot you to death, and then told you that I didn't think about it. Locke said in an icy tone, with a look of anger. Don't, I'm wrong, please don't shoot. If I had known that he was a little brother's woman, I wouldn't have dared to give me 10,000 dares. The black man's desire for survival exploded, constantly begging for mercy. My woman, are you special? It's quite nice to say, forget it, seeing you so good at talking, I will go around your life. Hearing this, Locke was first stunned, and then looked at Ramenfeel beside him, and his eyes immediately lit up. When he was in the hospital, because he had just crossed over, his mind was thinking about how to live well, so he did not pay attention to Ramenfeel's appearance. At this moment, he took a serious look and found that this girl was really a water spirit. Her figure is tall, her skin is as white as mud and fat jade, her body is not as slender as an oriental woman, but a little fat, and slightly fat as the best. Her face is dignified and atmospheric, different from Alice's beautiful goddess temperament. Ramenfeel has more of the breath of a young lady who leads the house. Looking very affinity, this kind of woman is simply the ultimate date. Being stared at by Locke like this, Ramenfeel's face immediately appeared a blush, looking more and more charming. Why are you looking at me like that, what's wrong with me? Ramenfeel touched his face and said shyly. It's okay, but I didn't expect the nurse sister who had a skin-to-skin kiss with me to be so beautiful, and I took the liberty to ask, do you have a boyfriend? A charming smile appeared on Locke's face. Nothing. No, now doesn't seem to be the time to say that. Ramenfeel swallowed, his mind seemed to be disturbed by Locke's smile. Spar, the black man. Listening to the conversation between Locke and Ramenfeel, Spa's whole body was stunned. Especially, while pointing a gun at himself, he talked about love with a woman. This bird is really in the forest. Oh, sorry, I was abrupt, wait until I solve this guy, I'll talk to you properly. Locke gave an apologetic expression, and then returned his gaze to Suba's body. It's not easy for everyone to come out and mess around, so I won't embarrass you. How much rent does she owe you? Locke asked lightly. Small money, just a little money. Since this beautiful lady is a brother's woman, then I don't want this rent, really, I don't want a penny, and ask my brother to raise his noble hand and let us go. We definitely won't dare in the future. Hearing Locke ask for rent, Suba was frightened and postponed one after another. This guy in front of him knows that he is a ruthless person as soon as he looks at his skills, and it is good that he can save his life. Where else dare to ask for any rent? His original purpose was actually to use rent as a reason to go to the female nurse in front of him, but now that he has encountered hard stubble, he naturally does not dare to jump. You insult me in particular, do you think I'm just like you? Lao Su is very upright and never takes a needle or thread from the common people. Hurry up and say how much. Locke slapped the black man in the face and said angrily. Spart. 3 months' rent, $2,100. The beaten face snapped, and Spa said quickly. Shish, 2,100. Why don't you grab money? Give you another chance, you think again. Hearing this, Locke couldn't help but gasp. This converted into RMB is more than 10,000. Although Locke is now a millionaire, the traditional virtues of thrift and thrift cultivated in his previous life still make him feel very painful, so he naturally does not want to take it out. Spar. It turns out to be a poor man without money, so why don't you ask for a yarn? Spa complained frantically inwardly. However, he naturally did not dare to do so on the surface, but said tentatively, then, that 210. Quote. 210. So expensive. I suspect you charge indiscriminately. Locke said with a gloomy face. Nope. No, I said it wrong, it's $21. Spaz quickly changed his words. Well, this price is quite reasonable, the first time we meet to wipe a fraction, just 2 pieces. Locke said seriously, then took out 2 coins from his pocket and placed them in Spart's hand. That's how you wipe it. Looking at Esbar, who left with a tearless expression on his face. Ramonfil suddenly had the illusion that the other party was worse than himself, but when he thought that the other party almost raped him just now, this illusion disappeared again, and instead appeared gratitude to Locke. Thank you for helping, thank you so much. When I pay my salary tomorrow, I will pay the rent to him myself. By the way, I still don't know your name. Ramonfil bowed to Locke. My name is Locke, did you pay the rent? Isn't what I just did wasting time? Locke looked at the female nurse in front of him with some stunnedness. Nope, no, I just think the rent is what I should give, but I really appreciate it for you to relieve me. Ramonfil said seriously. You are kind-hearted. Locke nodded appreciatively. Hee, this is what should have been given, but I've been really tight lately, and I can't take it out at once, so they blocked it here. To say kindness, you are a good person, just like an angel, suddenly appeared in front of my eyes, really thank you. Ramonfil said with a smile. Angels, such a sacred adjective is not for me, I am not saving you for no reason, I need to reciprocate. Locke said with a bad smile. Well, what's in return? Ramonfil was a little stunned. It was the first time he had heard someone take the initiative to say that heroes need to pay back for saving beauty. So, in amazement, she couldn't help but be a little curious again. What do you think of being a good person? Locke smiled faintly, with a hint of ruffle in his eyes. Hearing this, Ramonfil's ear scrapers immediately blushed shyly, and then said shyly, you really like to joke, where do I deserve it? Quote. After saying that, a trace of mist appeared in her eyes, looking very sad, and it seemed that she was about to cry. Seeing this, Locke couldn't help but be stunned, thinking that he had overheated his joke, and immediately apologized. Sorry, I was just joking, it shouldn't be true. Quote. Saying that, he raised his hand to wipe Ramonfil's tears, but at this time, it was a wound in his chest, which couldn't help but make him gasp. Hearing his inhalation, Ramonfil was startled, and only then saw with the light of the street lamp that Locke's chest was densely packed with small wounds, which looked quite terrifying. Suddenly she couldn't help but be startled and said, You're injured again, quick, I have a medicine box at home, I'll help you bandage it. Quote. It's okay, it's just a small injury, it'll be fine soon. Locke deferred. But Ramonfil didn't pay attention to Locke's excuse at all, and directly pulled Locke to a nearby old-fashioned building. Walking through the slightly dim and dilapidated staircase, Ramonfil took Locke into a small room. The room is about 20 square meters, the space is small, and many of the furniture is also dilapidated, looking quite down. However, this downcast little room was cleaned by Ramonfil, and it was not bad to live in this way, at least much better than the homeless people outside. The room was messy, see you laughing. You just find a place to sit, I'll find where the medicine box is. Ramonfil smiled awkwardly, and then rummaged through a medicine box in a cabinet. Then she skillfully took out some common wound treatment from the medicine box. What the hell are you going to do? How come there is so much shrapnel? You lie down in bed, I'll help you take the shrapnel out first. Ramonfil gave full play to the nurse's professionalism, and without saying anything more, he gently pressed him down on the weak bed. Then took the tweezers and carefully pulled out the shrapnel for Locke. Looking at the female nurse who was close at hand, Locke surprisingly had no physiological reaction. He only felt that the woman in front of him was too holy and had a good heart. That feeling of sincerity makes him feel like a spring breeze, and he is very comfortable. A moment later, Ramonville wiped the wound with medicine for Locke, and then carefully bandaged it, so that he was very satisfied and said, "Your body is really strong, and after receiving such a serious injury, it is the same as no one. If it were someone else, I am afraid that you would have died a long time ago." Quote, you don't look at who I am either. I'm an angel, and this injury is nothing," Locke said with a smile. Hearing this, Ramonville's face turned red again. It was obvious that Locke was teasing her with what she just said. In the face of Locke's teasing, Ramonville did not feel angry at all, but felt good in her heart, which even she didn't know what was going on. "Okay, thank you Miss Angel for your treatment, it's not early, I should go." Locke smiled and said goodbye to Ramonville. "You are so badly injured, don't you stay tonight, although the room is small, but I can sleep on the sofa." Hearing Locke suddenly say that he was leaving, Ramonville's heart suddenly became empty, and he was very disappointed. Let's see this for the second time. Are you so relieved of me? Aren't you afraid that I'll turn into a werewolf in the middle of the night and give you that?" Locke smiled wickedly and looked at the female nurse in front of him. "Don't be afraid, some people can feel each other's personality as long as they are on one side. I think you are a good person," Ramonville said quickly. That's you didn't feel my bad. I'm not a person at all when I'm bad. When the time comes to use various postures to XXOO you, but you will cry," Locke said with a bad smile. Ramonville, "Okay, no kidding you, I really have to go." Locke smiled and said, "The goddess Alice at home is still waiting for him. Since you are so resolute, I will not keep it. By the way, here is a bottle of medicine, you take it back and apply it once a day, you can prevent inflammation." "I'll send you out," Ramonville said a little disappointed. She has not had many relatives since she was a child, and her only relative is now disabled and living in a nursing home, so it is rare for someone in the family to visit. But not long after, Locke was about to leave again, and her home was about to become cold and deserted again, so she was naturally a little lost. Seeing Ramonville's slightly lost expression, Locke sighed lightly, and then waved his big hand, and suddenly a wad of dollars appeared in his hand. "This is $10,000, you take it to the emergency. No matter what, there is always hope in life." Locke smiled. "What, you, how do you know?" Seeing Locke suddenly hand her money, Ramonville couldn't help but be stunned, and then an incredible look appeared in his eyes. But before she could finish speaking, Locke waved his hand and said with a smile, "How do I know that you are in difficulty, right?" Quote, "Isn't that easy? I guessed it after a little thought. Although you are only a nurse, your income should still be good, and you will not be reduced to the point that you cannot pay $700 a month in rent, which only shows that you are in difficulty." Locke analyzed with a smile. Thank you for your kindness, but I can't ask for this money. I will pay my salary tomorrow, I will have money." Ramonville bit his lip and shook his head. "Don't lie, your monthly salary simply can't solve your immediate problem, otherwise you won't be in arrears for 3 months' rent," Locke said calmly. "How do you?" Ramonville showed a surprised expression. He didn't expect Locke to even guess this. She did encounter difficulties. She was unfortunate since she was a child. Her parents died in a car accident when she was very young. Fortunately, she also has a grandmother who loves her. Her grandmother worked hard to raise her as an adult, and before she could enjoy Ramonville's blessing, she was diagnosed with cancer, incontinence, and unable to take care of herself. Although the United States had serious illness medical insurance, it was still not enough to support her grandmother's life, and finally they had to sell their old houses and move to the cheapest black area. And she also desperately earned money to supplement the medical expenses and nursing home care fees, and after coming and going, she reached the point of exhaustion, and now she can't even pay the rent. If Locke hadn't helped, she really wouldn't have known what to do. The reason why she cried and felt lost just now was precisely because she thought of these sad things. Looking at the money handed over by Locke, her tears couldn't stop flowing, and her heart was extremely grateful. "Don't be in a hurry to move. I didn't give you money for no reason. This is considered to be borrowed from you. It requires interest. $50 a month interest, the time limit is 1 year, remember to give me the interest when you pay back, of course, if you can't pay it, the consequences will be very serious. Locke suddenly laughed wickedly. What consequences? Ramonville wiped his tears and said curiously. Promise to XXOOU. I'm serious. With that, Locke laughed and walked out of the room, then disappeared into the dark corridor. Looking at Locke's departing back, Ramonville's face was extremely blushing. Listening to Locke's threatening words, she was not afraid, but sweet. Such a good man, if I really promise to be with my body, I don't seem to lose it. Ramonville thought with a broken smile. Leaving Ramonville's house, Locke pulled the bandage off his body. After staying in Ramonville's house for almost half an hour, the wounds on his body were already healed, so naturally there was no need to bandage anymore, otherwise when he returned home and was seen by Alice, it was estimated that he would have to worry again. The clothes are also torn, see if they can be repaired. Looking at the muscles exposed in his chest, Locke shook his head in thought. White grade 55-8 tracksuit, defense 170, self-cleaning and shape change function, status, broken. Is it fixed? It costs 500 likes to repair. Quote. Fortunately, the cost is not high, otherwise it will be a big loss. Seeing that repairing clothes only required 500 praise points, Locke couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although he has earned more praise points in the past few days than in the Middle East, he has accumulated 6,221 points, which is more than enough to repair clothes. Without hesitation, he immediately spent 500 praise to repair his clothes, and suddenly a light invisible to outsiders flashed, and Locke's clothes were like new. After repairing the clothes, Locke focused on the strengthening potion in the backpack, which was the thing that made Ruoman. Osborne becomes a monster whose strength is not weaker than him. So Locke is now curious about what level of item this thing is, and it can have such an effect. As soon as his consciousness moved, the green enhancement potion in the backpack of the Locke system flashed, and at the same time, a text popped out in front of his eyes. Human Body Strengthening Agent, Blue LV3, can stimulate the potential of the human body after taking it, and the stimulation effect depends on the physique and efficacy of the user, but the effect of the agent is defective, which will amplify the ugly side of human nature and lead to personality splitting. Use with caution. Blue LV3. Looking at the words in front of him, Locke couldn't help but be shocked. No wonder that Forgiveness Color Monster has such strong strength. Lao Tzu's strongest equipment Zon Tai Miao Dao is only Blue LV2, and he suffered a little loss in the hands of this guy, it's not too shameful. Locke thought comfortingly. The excitation effect depends on the physique and efficacy of the user. A bottle of defective potion can make Ruoman. Osborne has the power to rival mine. You must know that I have eaten the essence cleansing pill and the condensing chi pill. In this way, my flesh and bones, the 8 veins of the chi meridian are definitely 100 times stronger than Ruoman. If I take this strengthening potion, the potential stimulated will definitely far exceed him. If I can take the upgraded perfect potion, the effect will definitely be better, and then killing the green goblin will not be a trivial matter. Locke thought inwardly with excitement. Then, he couldn't wait to upgrade the potion. As the Human Body Enhancement Potion, Blue LV3, upgraded. Upgrading to LV4 requires 20,000 praise points, and the efficacy is plus 50% and the side effects are minus 50%. Quote. I wipe, 20,000 praise value, this Nima is too expensive, poor can't afford to hurt. And the side effects are only minus 50%, so I have to upgrade it to the level of Blue LV5 at least to completely eliminate the defects of this potion. Locke muttered, and in a moment he figured it out. Wouldn't that cost 40 or 50,000 praises? It looks like this is going to slow down. Looking at his remaining thousands of praises, Locke shook his head with a wry smile, and now he had the feeling that a penny stumped the hero. The next priority is to earn more thumbs up. How do I earn it? This has to be worked out well. Locke muttered. At this moment, his eyes were attracted by the small USB flash drive in the system backpack. This thing was left to him by his predecessor's father. This is a very important thing, but this time is too busy. He has not had time to check. This drag has been dragged until now. Looking at this USB flash drive, Locke secretly intends to go home immediately to see what is recorded inside. While thinking like this, he rushed home. He returned home soon after. And just as he walked to the door, He sensed through his sense of chi that there was already a woman sitting in his home. Who else could this woman be if she was not a Black Widow? Locke shook his head, very speechless. This woman really did not treat herself as an outsider. Entering and leaving his house was the same as returning to her own home. I said, miss, if you can knock on the door and enter my house one day, I will probably die of joy. Opening the door, Locke didn't have a good airway. How did you know I was in your house? Black Widow looked at Locke Dow with some amazement. I'm a Superman who has taken the super soldier potion. I have a very sensitive sense of smell, and far outside the house, I can smell the unique smell of your body. Locke naturally didn't tell the truth, so he casually made up a reason. What does my body smell? What does it smell like? Black Widow wondered. It's like the sea, the waves are fierce. Locke said with a smile. You die. Black Widow smashed the wine bottle on the table towards Locke in anger, but was easily caught by Locke. Then, he unscrewed the cap and took a big sip. Well, the wine is good. The wine you bought? Locke asked with some curiosity as he looked at the wine in his hand. Last time I drank your wine at your house. This will give you a bottle. This is Lafite in 82, you drink like this, it's really a hidden thing. Black Widow shrugged. Poof, 82 years of raffit, why didn't you say it earlier? You already knew that you couldn't open it, and directly took it to sell it for money. Locke couldn't help but be surprised, and quickly picked up the wine bottle and looked at it. It was really Rafi's logo. Black Widow, can you be a little out of the way? You are also a millionaire now. Che. What's wrong with millionaires? Millionaires don't have to be thrifty. Locke said, of course. Forget it, you don't understand this when I tell you. You better hurry up and tell me what you mean. It's so late, I'm going to rest. Quote. Rest, I see you're waiting for your little girlfriend to snap with you. Black Widow said in a disdainful tone. You. Locke was taken aback. Don't be surprised how I know. Your little girlfriend has come several times, lingering at the door for a long time. I can't bear it, so I went out and told her that you were my person tonight. Let her not come. Black Widow smiled lightly. All wipe, are you special? Hearing this, Locke's face immediately became gloomy, and then he planned to run out to find Alice. But at this moment, Black Widow laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, it seems that you really hurt your little girlfriend. Just kidding you. She came once, and then saw that the lights in your house were not on, and went home again. Quote. You're a crazy woman, you think it's fun to play me. Locke glared angrily at Black Widow. Of course, tease you boy, I think it's funny, you might as well find me. Black Widow teased. Do you think I wouldn't dare? You crazy woman doesn't teach you a lesson today, you really treat lousy as a bully. Unlike before, Locke did not admit it, but rushed to the front of Black Widow with an arrow. This account, I want to fight back. Black Widow rolled over and said angrily. Don't. Locke begged for mercy again and again. I don't know if it's because he drank a little wine just now, even he felt a little too impulsive. He originally thought that Black Widow would fight to the death to resist, but unexpectedly, Black Widow was not a vegetarian, not only did not resist, but was charming and brave in battle. After some passion, Locke came back to his senses, but the more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong, and the feeling came too suddenly. I'm angry, but it's not like that. Combined with the performance of Black Widow just now, the more he thought about it, the more he felt as if he was pitted by the woman in front of him. Thinking so, he immediately rolled over from the bed, and then took the 82-year-old Rafi he had just drunk in his hand. Then he moved his consciousness and activated the identification function of the infinite upgrade system. In order not to identify what he encountered, this is very delayed, so Locke has already adjusted the automatic identification function to manual a few days ago, and only when he takes the initiative to issue a command will he identify the object in his hand. Closing parenthesis. With the use of the identification function, a text suddenly jumped out of his eyes. Alcohol items, 82 years old Lafite, white grade 55-1, pure taste, expensive value, note, drugs added to wine, use with caution. Looking at this text, Locke looked at Black Widow in amazement. I wipe, you dead woman actually drugged Lao Su. Hee, I was discovered by you so quickly, it's worthy of being the man I fancy, it's really smart. Hearing this, Black Widow not only did not refute, but took the initiative to admit it openly. Locke, cut, get cheap and sell well. Black Widow laughed. Locke, Okay, you kid just steal the fun. There are very few in this world that can make the old lady fancy. Quote. What about liars? Locke scoffed. Black Widow's story, he still knows. Well, don't grind like a woman. I said before that I have time to mess with you. You think I'm kidding you? It's just okay these days, so I remembered it. I didn't expect you to be so domineering, and I haven't drunk much of this wine. But don't worry, I won't ask you to be responsible for me. Our relationship is very pure, that is, we need each other. Black Widow smiled lightly. That's what you mean, Locke said lightly. I know what you're thinking. Don't worry, although I am not a chaste and martyr woman, I am not such an unbearable woman. Black Widow shook her head and smiled. Her tone was flat, but Locke heard a hint of sincerity. As a man, he is very selfish in that regard, and Locke is naturally no exception. Whether what Black Widow said was true or not, but when he said it, it still made Locke's heart feel a lot smoother. It's better to be like this, otherwise once I find out that you are looking for a man behind my back, I will kill him. Locke said in a grim tone. Hee, boy, you are really domineering, but I just like your domineering look, it's so handsome. Black Widow looked like a little fangirl at the moment, looking at Locke's eyes were glowing with light. Okay, let's get down to business. I don't believe you're here just for me. Locke said lightly. Can you kid not say that I seem to be desperate? This time you said wrong, I really came for you, and then asked you something by the way. Black Widow laughed as she leaned in Locke's ear. What's going on? Locke asked curiously. The sudden attack at Osborne Base has something to do with you, right? That green monster, you should know what's going on, right? Black Widow's expression suddenly became serious. Sure enough, you really came for that guy. Locke smiled, as if he had expected it. It's worthy of S.H.I.E.L.D., the news is really well informed. How long has it been since I already knew about this? But you're wrong about one thing. What happened there doesn't have much to do with me, I just happened to pass by. As for the green monster in your mouth, I know a little. He attacked me inexplicably, I fought back, so there was a brief exchange. Locke said with a laugh, he naturally wouldn't tell the truth. Passing by. You liar. Your home is 108,000 miles away, and you shouldn't pass by there. Black Widow looked at Locke angrily, and could see at a glance that Locke was lying. Where am I passing by? Do you have control of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I'm idle and bored, can't I run and have fun? Locke responded domineeringly. Black Widow. Forget it, just when you are passing by, tell me the details you know about the green monster, this will help me. Black Widow said seriously. Hearing this, Locke nodded, and then told Black Widow the information about the Green Goblin that he had already sorted out in his mind. This information includes introductions to Green Goblin's power, speed, weapons and equipment, as well as some clues about Green Goblin's true identity, of course, all of which are insinuations. If he could, he really wanted to directly poke out the true identity of the Green Goblin. After all, this guy could make him turn over and suffer a big loss. So if he can let S.H.I.E.L.D. directly help solve this mortal enemy, then he will naturally be relaxed, saving himself the trouble of dealing with this fool. But if you directly tell Black Widow the specific details, then his passerby statement will naturally not be true. After all, there is no passerby in this world who can clearly know the cause and effect of what happened in other people's homes. After providing some information, the two of them warmed up for a moment, and then Black Widow once again turned into a spirit in the night and disappeared. Looking at the departing Black Widow, and then at the messy bed that was being for love, Locke couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seems that some will be busy tomorrow morning, and it must be washed off, otherwise Alice will find out when she comes to the designation. After seeing off Black Widow, Locke then remembered about the USB stick. So he did not hesitate, immediately found a computer, and then inserted the USB flash drive into it. There are not many things stored in the USB flash drive, just a video screen. Curious, Locke clicked on the first video screen, and suddenly a man appeared. This man is not the father of Locke's predecessor, who else could it be? Locke, if you see this video, it means that I am dead. Don't be sad, people will always have such a day, but I came a little early. My true identity, presumably Natasha has already told you, I won't explain more. I actually got the super soldier potion that S.H.I.E.L.D. asked me to take, but out of selfishness, I didn't hand it in. I want to leave it to you, my son, I value you the most in this world. In addition to the potion, I also found a strange thing in the Hydra base. This thing is so amazing, I didn't have time to figure out what this thing is, so I stored it in a safe place. Please be sure to get it. Remember not to trust anyone, you have to go alone. With that, the screen went black, and then a map popped up. Seeing this, Locke immediately carefully memorized the map in his mind, and then quickly put the USB flash drive back into the system backpack. What the hell is weird? Can the father who is an agent be so shocked, even frightened? Locke muttered. And while Locke was still pondering how to find the mysterious object, in a luxurious villa, Joman Osborne was looking at himself in the mirror incredulously. At this moment, he in the mirror was like another person, and he was able to talk to him. Who are you? Ruoman looked at himself in the mirror and said to himself. Have you forgotten? A little accident in the lab. Ruoman in the mirror said with a sly smile. Fitness enhancer. Ruoman muttered. It's me, your greatest invention, the superpower you want the most in your life, beyond imagination. Ruoman in the mirror said proudly. Superpowers. What happened to the injuries on my body? Ruoman asked, looking at the wounds on his body that had healed a lot. HMPH, this is all made by that fool who suddenly appeared. I will find him and smash his corpse into 10,000 pieces, just wait a little longer. Ruoman in the mirror said with a fierce face, his eyes full of killing intent. You killed Dr. Shi. At this time, Ruoman seemed to remember something. No, it's not me, it's us, we killed together. That guy wants to stop my birth, so he deserves to die. Not only him, but everyone who stands in our way is going to die. Green Goblin said with an evil smile. No, who the hell are you? This is different from what I thought, I don't want this result. Ruoman said with difficulty. Haha, then what result do you want? Is years of research being bolted back and then pushed down from the CEO position? No, that's not the result you want, now the result is perfect. With me, you can say what you once dared not say, do what you once did not dare to do, and sweep away anyone who stands in your way, including that black-clad masked fool. The Green Goblin said viciously. Now in this world, only that fool can stop us, so we must find him, and then kill him, so that he will never be able to live forever. Ruoman laughed, his eyes full of madness. One night without a word. Early the next morning, Locke threw all the sheets into the washing machine before going out. As soon as he went out, he saw Alice standing in front of his house in full spirits. Seeing this, Locke was weak for a while, saying that he was going on a date at home, but finally got together with Black Widow, which was indeed too far-fetched. If it were him, I was afraid that he would also be angry. Where did you go last night? Why don't you get my message back? Do you know I'm dying of fear? Unlike the imaginary rage, Alice threw herself into Locke's arms with tears in her eyes, and her face was worried, and there was no anger, he thought. Ah, I'm sorry, something happened, so, Locke tried to explain, but before he could finish he was blocked by Alice's kiss. For a long time, the two slowly separated. No need to explain, I know that you are a little different now, you must have your bitterness, I just hope that you can return a message to report safety in the future, so that I don't worry so much. Alice touched Locke's face and said. Seeing Alice look like this, Locke's heart was moved and guilty. There is a woman like this, how can the husband ask for it? Don't worry, I will never do this in the future, I will definitely send you a message in time to report that I am safe, but I can't worry Miss Brittany Alice anymore. Locke pinched Alice's face. Nasty, who's your Brittany? Alice stomped her foot, looking shy. The two chatted casually as they walked towards the school. However, just after the two arrived at the school, Locke found that many people were pointing at him behind his back, and Locke's hearing immediately heard that these people were talking about him becoming Alice's boyfriend. After yesterday's fight and brawl, the fact that Alice became Locke's girlfriend is already known to the whole school. And Alice is a well-deserved school flower figure in the school, and it is conceivable how many people's dream lovers. So just after the news of Alice's famous flower being picked spread, Locke immediately became famous and became the #1 public enemy of the boys in Midtown High School, so much so that now Locke will be pointed at him wherever he goes. I already knew that I wouldn't disclose our relationship. Watching the crowd pointing at him, Locke looked at Alice very depressed and said. Now that I know that I regret it, why didn't I think of it when I stood up for me yesterday? Alice covered her mouth and laughed. Are you still in the mood to laugh? Locke looked at Alice speechlessly. Of course I'm in the mood. Now that the whole school knows that I have a famous flower, I don't have to think about how to refuse other people's pursuits. Do you know how many boys' pursuits I used to refuse every day? It's really annoying, Alice said happily. Are you putting pressure on me in disguise, or are you deliberately showing off? Locke said with a smile. Hee, both. You have to cherish me well, otherwise be careful if I leave you, I'm very sought after. Alice said sweetly. They dare rob me, women, be careful that I kill them. Locke was very domineering. Hee, your domineering appearance is so handsome, I can show you a way to make them stop pointing at you, but you have to promise me a condition. Alice sells Guan Zidao. The method is actually very simple. Find an opportunity to prove your strength in front of everyone, let them all see how powerful you are, so that they naturally won't say anything more. Alice said with a smile. Prove strength. Doesn't yesterday prove my strength? Locke shrugged. It's not just force, this is a school, if you can let others see your other excellent side, they will naturally shut up. Alice said. Such as, for example, at a party, you can put on a great show and convince them. Alice said. Party. Locke looked at Alice in confusion. Hee, it's like this, it's about to take the joint entrance examination. The school is going to hold a party for the students to relax, because I am a member of the student union, I will be responsible for organizing this party, and someone needs to prepare the program at that time. Are you interested? Alice explained with a smile. Show. Locke was stunned, and immediately wanted to refuse, but suddenly he thought of something again, but he was silent. This kind of party must have a lot of people to attend. You must know that there are thousands of people in the whole school, even if it is a simple senior year, it is nearly 1,000 people. In front of so many people, if he can perform a show that shocks the audience, he will definitely be able to earn a wave of admiration value at that time. And isn't that exactly what he plans to do? It's really a nowhere to step on iron shoes, and it doesn't take any effort to get it. This is a great thing that someone sent pillows without sleep. After figuring it out, Locke nodded with a smile and said, You little goblin, you are pulling people for the party. Quote. Hee, how can you say it's a pit? Just ask you to support your girlfriend's work, how? Alice stuck out her tongue. My wife has said so, if I don't agree, won't I give you face? Don't worry, I will definitely amaze the audience when the time comes. Locke touched Alice's head. Nasty, who's your wife? Alice hammered Locke's chest, saying hatred, but a smile blossomed on her face. Wait, you say that, what show have you already thought of? Can you tell me what it is first, I'm so curious. Alice looked at Locke with sparkling eyes, like a little fangirl. Not now, when we get home in the evening, we'll talk in bed. Locke said with a bad laugh. Nasty, ignore you. Alice stomped her foot, but a sweet smile appeared on her face. And just as the two were flirting, a young man dressed in oilhead and flower came over. My beautiful goddess Miss Alice, I didn't expect you to be here again, I've been looking for you for a long time. Seeing this man who suddenly appeared, a look of disgust appeared on Alice's face, but this disgust was well hidden by him, and it was still difficult for others to find it except Locke. Elf, why are you looking for me? Alice said in a rare cold tone. Alice, don't treat me like this, otherwise I will be very sad, I just want to care about you. The young man named Elf said lightly, looking personable. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't need to, if it's okay, my boyfriend and I are leaving. Alice took Locke's hand and planned to leave. But at this moment, Elf blocked the two with an arrow. Then, he looked at Locke with a smile on his face, and then said with a high-spirited attitude, You are Locke. Angus, I thought that the guy who could win Miss Alice's heart was some particularly outstanding character, but now it seems that it is very average. Quote. Elf, please be respectful to my boyfriend. Alice raised an eyebrow and said coldly. Gee, protect him so quickly. Alice, I really don't understand what you're thinking. You reject my pursuit but accept such a small slush. You must be deliberately angry with me, right? Alice, don't be capricious. Only I, Elf, can be worthy of you in this world, and I can give you the life you want most. Elf didn't put Locke in his eyes at all, and directly insulted Locke in front of him. Enough, if you are full of nonsense, don't blame me for being unkind to you. Alice said angrily. Looking at Alice's angry look, Locke, who was standing on the side, was very sweet in his heart. What is a good woman? This is a good woman. Always thinking about yourself, always thinking about the man who protects himself, where to find such a woman. Locke felt that he was very lucky, and it was worth it to get such a woman, and this life was worth it. You're welcome. How are you going to be unkind to me? Come on, release your unkindness on me, let me feel the feelings. Elf said in a strange manner as he kept approaching Alice. In his eyes, Locke at this moment was like a coward, just standing on the side and not even daring to speak. Seeing this, he became more and more unscrupulous, and did not take Locke seriously at all. What he never expected was that just when he was about to play hooligan on Alice, Locke, who was nothing in his eyes, suddenly kicked him out. This kick was crisp and explosive, just one kick, Elf was kicked out like a ball, and finally fell into the distant flower bed, looking how embarrassed it was. You're welcome to release it on you. This is the first time in my life that I have heard such a request, and I can't say it if I don't meet you. Locke smiled faintly, then pulled Alice and swaggered away. How dare you hit me? Locke, Angus, I'm going to kill you. Pulling his head out of the mound of dirt, Elf roared. At this moment, if Locke was still here, he would definitely be able to see Elf's pupils turn a strange yellow color. And when he was angry, he could also see a faint yellow gas emanating from his body. Then, the surrounding trick trees seemed to be poisoned, and they all withered and fell down. Looking at the withered flowers and plants around, Elf seemed to have seen it for a long time, he just laughed coldly, and then patted the dust on his body and left. No one knows what he left here to do, and everything can only be answered by time. Time passed, and in an instant it was the day of the party. During this time, Locke had a good time, and did not encounter any troubles. Even the Black Widow, who had always regarded his home as his own before, did not appear. It was as if the madness of the last night was a farewell cannon, which couldn't help but make Locke quite depressed. Not only Black Widow, but the Green Goblin, who had already fought with him once, had completely disappeared during this time, as if he had disappeared. But Locke knew that it was all temporary, it was like the calm before the storm, and the real storm was still waiting for him. But these are not things that Locke can control, and now all he can control is tonight's gala performance. How do I get a lot of likes? This is a question that Locke has been thinking about all along, and after so many days of experience, he clearly understands that high-profile pretense is the core of obtaining praise points. And how to pretend to be high-profile? Of course, it must be when there are many people, so from the beginning, Locke had a plan, that is, to become a screen character or become a well-known figure. Because only in this way, once he makes something praiseworthy or shocking, the value of admiration will naturally be credited in minutes. This is also the main purpose of Locke's promise to participate in the party, and today's party is his first step to achieve his goal, so he is extra cautious. And out of all types of performances, what show is the most shocking and bizarre? Of course, it is a magic show and an acrobatic show, a very mysterious sense, a very exciting feeling. If you can combine the two performances, the impact of the picture can be imagined. And the performance prepared by Locke is a thrilling magic, with a backpack function of an infinite upgrade system, and performing such magic is simply trivial, and it is not difficult for him at all. On the stage, the beautiful and generous Alice is dancing the opening dance hotly. As a school flower character of Midtown High School, dance songs are considered basic skills. It's worthy of being my woman, and I'm really proficient in blowing, playing and singing. Locke, who stayed in the background to prepare, looked at Alice, who was beautiful and incomprehensible on the stage, and his eyes showed pride. A few minutes later, Alice came down from the dance, and Locke immediately greeted her, and then picked Alice up in full view. Nasty, don't be like this, so many people, Alice said coquettishly. Leave it alone. Anyway, the relationship has been made public, they like to watch it, let their angry teeth itch. Locke said indifferently. Okay, it's time for you to play, but I specially arranged your show in front, don't let me down. Alice laughed. I'm still quite stressed when you say that, but don't worry, I will definitely make you stunned, and I will definitely shock the audience, but then you will have to promise me to come on stage and present me with flowers. If that's the case, I'll not only give you flowers, I'll add another kiss. Alice raised an eyebrow. What you said, don't play tricks, otherwise I'll see how I clean you up tonight. Locke touched Alice's face and stepped onto the stage. Next up was by Locke of the second class of high school. Angus brings us a magic show, please keep your eyes open. The host of the evening reported behind the scenes and stepped off the stage. At the same time, Locke stepped slowly, and suddenly the spotlight shone on his body. His handsome face and tall body immediately caused a group of women to scream as soon as he appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Wow, how handsome. Quote, quick, immediately give me all the information about this kid, I'm going to chase him backwards. Chasing you is out of a chance, I heard that he is already the boyfriend of Alice, the school flower of our school. What? No, this kind of man is my male god. The women exclaimed in the audience. Suddenly, a paragraph of text that received a praise value appeared in front of Locke's eyes. Amazing value from Nasha. +2. Note. Amazing appearance. Quote, quote. Looking at the text messages one after another, and then watching the number of admiration values constantly jumping up, Locke suddenly smiled like a flower, happy no. It seems that this path is really not wrong. It is only the beginning and has received more than 500 praise points, and when my performance officially starts, the praise value will not take off. Locke thought inwardly excitedly. Thinking like this, his performance officially began. Welcome to my theater, I am Locke the magician. Locke made a simple opening statement by bowing to the audience. As soon as these words came out, there was a burst of laughter from the audience. Some boys mocked on the spot. This kid is afraid of a fool. And the magician, if he were a magician, I would be a god. Quote. Yes, this opening statement is also too rubbish, laugh to death. Quote. How such a person can be favored by Goddess Alice, it's incredible. The boys talked a lot, and the words were full of acidity. And the girls have long been captured by Locke's handsome appearance, and when they hear someone mocking Locke, these girls immediately laugh. A group of Luther who can't eat grapes and say grape sour, such a handsome man if I would be willing to follow him. That is, you just have jealous pink eye and can't see others well. Quote, quote. Listening to the heated discussion in the audience, Locke laughed lightly, this is the effect he wants, the more outsiders question, the greater the shock at that time. You don't believe it, do you? Locke asked knowingly. Yes, the boys shouted, especially the Bear King and his group. They were beaten so badly by Locke before, they naturally did not dare to jump on the surface, but now that they have this opportunity to mock, they naturally will not let go. Okay, then you guys keep your eyes open. Locke smiled, looking proud. After saying that, Locke put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked like a hanger. Then, his clothes and pants slowly changed, without covering, without other props, and began to change under the eyes of everyone. And the speed of change is not a common instantaneous change of other magicians, but slowly, slowly, as if afraid that others will not be able to see clearly. In a moment, Locke's original sportswear immediately turned into a suit and leather shoes, and suddenly his image became extremely noble, looking like a noble son of a wealthy family. Looking at Locke who looked like this, a group of girls in the audience were about to go crazy. Ah, so handsome, this is also too powerful, I want to be his woman. What good things did Alice do in her previous life, to be able to get the favor of this kind of man? I have to say that I am jealous. I'm jealous too, I'm going to rob Alice the man. A good-looking woman exclaimed. Not just praise and envy, with Locke's body change, the audience in the audience was immediately stunned. Suddenly, amazing praise from Luther the Bear King plus 229 inches. Plus 159 praise from Alice. Just in an instant, Locke's eyes were flooded by paragraphs of text, and Locke had to block it and replace it with a language broadcast, and finally even the voice broadcast was too harsh, making Locke directly completely shield, simply watching the change in the number of praise. And in this moment, Locke received more than 30,000 praises. Looking at such gains, even Locke, who had already seen the world, couldn't help but breathe a little quickly. This Nima, too, is too fast. Locke guessed that this would lead to a wave of admiration, but he did not expect it to come so high, which was completely beyond his imagination. His performance can be 3 minutes long, according to this rhythm. When he finishes performing, this amazement is worth more than 100,000. As soon as he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel fluttering, so he performed harder and harder. Don't be surprised, this is just the basic operation of magicians. I promise you have never seen the show I really want to perform today. For example, said the Guanzi as he waved his big hand toward the center of the stage. Suddenly, with a boom, a luxury car appeared in front of everyone out of thin air. Still unobstructed, without using any props, it appeared so bluntly in front of everyone's eyes. Like conjuring a car out of thin air. Locke smiled at the audience. Suddenly, everyone was shocked again, and Locke received more than 30,000 points of admiration. Another example is conjuring a machine gun out of thin air. Looking at the soaring praise value, Locke was ecstatic in his heart, only to see his big hand waved again, and suddenly a rack machine gun appeared on the stage. In order to prove that this is a real car and a real gun, we asked a lucky audience member to come up and do a test. Locke's gaze swept through the crowd. Looking at Locke's gaze, a group of people in the audience were confused. What else is good to say? The gun, this thing must be verified to be true and false. This is to shoot people. Also pick a lucky viewer. This is the unlucky audience. Everyone thought speechlessly in their hearts, and at this moment, Locke's gaze locked on a tall man. This man is not the Bear King who was beaten by him. Who else can it be? That's it. Locke pointed at the Bear King. Huh, no, don't, Brother Luo, don't be like this. I'm very well behaved now, please spare me. As soon as he heard that he was called to the stage, the Bear King thought that Locke wanted to take the opportunity to rectify him again, so he immediately prodded. Such a look was too bad for his domineering image in the eyes of outsiders before, and suddenly the classmates who had been bullied by him all cast contemptuous eyes at him. The Bear King never thought that just such a short time today would cause him to never have the opportunity to bully others in the future. Because everyone already knows that the Bear King is an instigator, there is nothing to be afraid of. Cut, you are a trash, you don't dare to give me the opportunity to hit me. What are you still called Bear King? Change your name to Dog Bear King in the future. Locke said mockingly. Listening to his words, there was a burst of laughter in the audience. At this moment, another slightly short young man shouted, Mr. Magician, let me come. Quote. Hearing this, Locke looked at the young man who stood up with some shock, and the reason why he was shocked was because the young man who stood up turned out to be Pete Parker, the familiar Spider-Man. In this way, he naturally felt extremely shocked. It seems that this kid is worried that I will do something out of the ordinary. Is this a precaution in advance? It is worthy of being the most popular big hero of the whole people, and this heart of justice is really rare. Locke thought secretly, but then nodded with a smile. Since this classmate is so proactive, if I don't invite you to come up, it will definitely be unjustifiable, but before coming up, we have to confirm one thing. Locke smiled. What's going on? Pete Parker said with some curiosity. What's your name? We haven't met before, have we? You're by no means my trust, are you? Locke said in the tone of a magician. Everyone, even if you are a Tor, don't you have to say it? This is obviously nonsense. No, I've seen you before that, you Locke. The name of Angus, there should be very few people who have not heard of it now, right? It's true that you haven't seen me. My name is Pete Parker. Pete Parker said humorously. As soon as these words came out, there was laughter in the audience again. Locke, on the other hand, is a little depressed, saying that Spider-Man, Pete Parker and Deadpool are the most famous words in the Marvel world, and now it seems that this is not wrong at all. Hee, classmate, you are really humorous. Since this is the case, it can better show that we have nothing to do with each other. Please come up, and now please verify whether this gun is real. Luke pulled Petra to the machine gun. How to verify? Of course it's live shooting. Locke placed an iron plate in front of the machine gun and motioned for Pete Parker to shoot. The moment he touched the machine gun, Pete Parker already knew that the machine gun was real. Suddenly, his gaze looked at Locke very sharply, as if once Locke did something out of the ordinary, he would immediately start. Seeing the other party in such a gesture, Locke shrugged his shoulders and looked calm. Then he said, shoot at this iron plate. Quote, I don't think I need to try, do I? This is a real gun, that's right. Pete Parker naturally didn't want to shoot in front of so many people, because if it caused a riot, it would be a disaster. If you don't try, how do you know if it's true or not? If you don't want to, I'll call someone else. Locke smiled lightly, not taking Spider-Man's words seriously at all. Hearing this, Pete Parker looked at Locke with solemn eyes, and then said softly, Don't try, I also know that this is a real gun, are you sure it's magic, not a scoundrel who takes the opportunity to make trouble? Quote. Hee, classmate, are you nervous? How did I become a troublemaker by turning into a magic trick? Does it look like you want to fight criminals? Do you think you're the Spider-Man out there wandering around? Locke said, intentionally or unintentionally. Pete Parker, I'm really the swinging Spider-Man you say in your mouth. Pete Parker wanted to go back, but after thinking about it, he finally held back. What's going on with this lucky man? Can you hurry up, and will this show continue? The audience complained, dissatisfied. Seeing this, Pete Parker's face appeared embarrassed, but then he gritted his teeth and then pulled the trigger of the machine gun. Suddenly, the sound of clicking gunfire resounded throughout the theater. As the gunshots rang out, screams suddenly sounded, and then everyone looked at Locke on the stage in shock. They didn't seem to expect that Locke really conjured a real gun. Fortunately, Locke reminded him in advance, so the gunshot did not cause a commotion as Pete Parker thought. Not only did it not, but it led the atmosphere to a new climax. Suddenly, another wave of admiration rose, and Locke earned more than 10,000 points. You don't need to discuss where this gun came from, since you heard the gunshot, everyone should know by now that it is a real gun. Locke waved his hand to the audience who were talking about it. Yes, the crowd shouted in agreement. Very good, since the authenticity has been verified, then let's start our official performance. Come, this classmate named Pete Parker, now you use this machine gun and shoot me. Locke said lightly. What? As soon as these words came out, they were immediately shocked, and all the people looked at Locke like crazy people. At the same time, Locke's astonishment value rose again. What do you say? Are you kidding me? Shoot at you with this machine gun, then won't I become a murderer? No, I won't do it. Pete Parker shook his head repeatedly. Don't worry, I'm a magician, I'll never be fine. Locke said seriously. This is the climax of his magic show, and if he can perform a physical hard bullet in front of everyone, he believes that the praise value will skyrocket. It's just that this Pete Parker is a little difficult to get involved and actually refused on the spot. This can be very difficult for him to do. Are you sure? Hearing Locke's repeated requests, Pete Parker couldn't help but hesitate. Of course, if you put 10,000 hearts, I will be fine, this is just a magic show. Locke laughed. Hearing this, Pete Parker finally nodded, and then immediately pulled the trigger, so fast that Locke didn't even have time to react. Suddenly, the clattering of gunfire sounded again, but this time the bullet was not fired at the iron plate. Instead, a volley shot at Locke's body. Locke's clothes and pants are invulnerable, and the bullets of these machine guns naturally cannot hurt him in the slightest. Not only cannot hurt him, because of the strong impact, the bullets finally fell to Locke in unison. All this was like a miracle, and everyone in the audience was terrified, but stunned. After everyone was stunned for a moment, then one after another burst out of everyone's mouths filled with incredible exclamations, and at the same time, the astonishment value also reached a new climax, directly exploding Locke by as many as 50,000. At this point, Locke's so-called magic show was completely over. Bowing to the audience, Locke waved his hand heartily. Suddenly, the machine gun and the car on the stage disappeared in unison, and this method brought him tens of thousands of points of admiration. During the entire performance, Locke earned a total of almost 150,000 praise points. How could he not be furious? If he could, he would want to raise his head to the sky and shout so much now. However, just as he was about to step down and take advantage of the soaring praise, a huge explosion suddenly sounded from outside the theater. Hearing this explosion, the audience in the venue thought that Locke had made some tricks again, and suddenly looked at Locke in unison. Seeing this, Locke couldn't help but be surprised, because through the sense of chi, he found that a strange man in green armor appeared in the air outside the theater. This weirdo is not the Green Goblin, or who can it be? Run, this is a real attack, someone launched a terrorist attack. Locke shouted to the audience with a horrified face. But it was already too late, and at this moment, there was a sudden boom. Locke was shocked to find that the ceiling of the theater where they were located had been blown open with a bomb, and suddenly a huge piece of glass and steel beams fell down. At the same time, he found that Pete Parker, who had been with him on stage, had disappeared. How could the Green Goblin be here? Does that guy know my identity? Locke was shocked and angry, but he didn't think much about it, because pieces of broken glass had fallen from the sky and smashed into the audience. Although Locke is not a big hero, if he can stand up at this time, he will definitely get a lot of praise. Not for anything else, just for the sake of amazement, this is also as it should be. So, he jumped out towards the bottom of the stage, and then blocked a huge steel bar with one hand, and the classmates who were so frightened and screamed looked at him with shocked faces. Then a wave of amazement values flew up. "Thank you so much, Mr. Magician, you were really magical," several of the rescued classmates said gratefully. "You're welcome, you guys get out of here." Locke's face was very solemn. At this moment, he heard a painful scream coming from not far away, and he immediately turned his gaze, and immediately saw a woman being smashed to the ground by pieces of glass. Seeing this, without saying a word, he rushed like a cheetah, then pulled the woman up and held her in his arms, and then he jumped and took her to a safe area. "Teacher, how are you?" It was then that he saw that the woman in his arms was none other than his math teacher, Ottilia. "Ah, what's wrong with my face? Why does it hurt so much? Why is it bleeding so much? Phew, am I disfigured?" Ignoring Locke's question, Ottilia touched her face and found her hands covered in blood. Suddenly, she began to cry, looking like an injured lamb. And Locke, who was holding her, clearly saw that Ottilia's face was cut by glass shards, large and small. So Ottilia guessed right, she was indeed disfigured, and it was quite badly disfigured. For a woman who loves beauty, this is undoubtedly the harshest blow in the world. If it is a person with poor mental quality, I am afraid that it will immediately be depressed, and thus go to the extreme. Ottilia is also a woman, and she is also a big beauty with a stunning face. Such a woman is far more beautiful than ordinary women, so this blow to Ottilia can be imagined. And Locke doesn't know whether Ottilia's psychological quality is good or not, so for the sake of Ottilia, he naturally can't tell the truth, and can only lie to the other party temporarily. "No, it's just a slight injury. I'll take you to the hospital to bandage it a little. Rest assured, teacher, you will be fine." Locke looked at Ottilia affirmatively. Really, listening to Locke's firm tone, Ottilia's mood finally stabilized. At this time, Locke was like an angel in her eyes, which made her feel a strong sense of closeness. Not only that, but there are also some complicated emotions. That kind of emotions are gratitude, touching, surprise, etc., anyway, so complicated that Ottilia doesn't know how to describe it. "Of course, I was taught by your teacher, and I dare not lie to anyone. So trust me, you'll be fine," Locke comforted. "Well, I believe you." Ottilia looked at Locke with a complicated expression, and then nodded. "Then I'll take you to a safe area first, and I'll take you to the hospital later," Locke said seriously. But at this moment, the Green Goblin had flown in through the hole that had been blown open in the ceiling of the theater. Because his appearance was so weird, all of a sudden the students screamed, obviously frightened. "Scream, scream, tremble. From now on, my Lord Green Goblin will dominate you filthy and lowly creatures forever." The Green Goblin laughed maniacally, and then his figure fell rapidly, and he instantly appeared in front of a middle-aged man. "You traitor, Osborne Enterprises was founded by me. It's like my child, and you're with a couple of other fools trying to pull me off the CEO, you all deserve to die." While angrily expressing the dissatisfaction in his heart, the Green Goblin grabbed the middle-aged man's neck and easily lifted it up. Then, he twisted his big hand violently, and the middle-aged man's neck was easily broken by him. Then he threw the middle-aged man's body on the ground, looking like he was throwing some kind of garbage. Such a cruel scene immediately cast a shadow on everyone's hearts. Suddenly, the cries of crying and crying for help gathered together, and a lament called Fear was played. So that's the case. There are even people from the board of directors of Osborne in this party today. It seems that the Green Devil came here to kill the talent of the board. He didn't come to find me. All this is a coincidence. No one else could hear what the Green Goblin was saying, but Locke could hear it clearly. Although the Green Goblin did not come for Locke, it did not affect Locke's initiative to find him. The calculated feud of that day, Locke can remember clearly. Since it happened to happen today, then he can't let the other party go. Thinking like this, Locke immediately sent Ottilia to the medical staff who arrived. "Teacher, you remember, no matter what the doctor tells you, you can't despair. Wait for me, you must wait for me to go to the hospital to find you. I will definitely be able to make you okay, you must believe me." Locke looked at Ottilia extremely seriously and said, "Although this seems a little inappropriate at this time, Locke really does not know how much damage the disfigured blow will bring to Austria, and he does not want to find out that the other party has committed suicide because of depression when he goes to visit Ottilia in the hospital. He definitely didn't want to see such a thing." After the explanation, he took a big step and planned to go to the Green Goblin to settle the account. But at this moment, a person wearing a red and blue tights suddenly appeared in front of everyone, and then rushed to the Green Goblin one step ahead. This person is not Spider-Man, who else can it be? Seeing this, Locke was stunned for a moment, and did not continue to step forward, because he wanted to have a crane muscle to compete for the profit of the fisherman. But at this moment, a familiar voice sounded. It was Alice's voice, and it was an extremely frightened cry for help. Hearing this voice, Locke's heart couldn't help but tremble, and then he looked in the direction where the voice came from with a murderous face. It was the backstage of the party, and because it was far from the center of the theater, it was lucky to avoid the attack of the glass rain, which is why Locke did not rush to Alice in the first place. He thought that Alice was safe in the background for a short time. But what he didn't expect was that it had only been so long that even something happened in the background. Between the anger, Locke didn't say a word, and his figure rushed towards the backstage like a gust of wind. And the moment he rushed in, he saw a man with a mask carrying Alice and fleeing outside the theater. "Where is the demon, who dares to rob my woman? You are impatient." Locke roared angrily, but his figure did not stop at all, and continued to chase towards the masked man non-stop. The masked man didn't seem to expect Locke to react so quickly, so after seeing Locke chasing him like a gust of wind, he was first startled, and then he accelerated his escape speed, wanting to quickly get rid of Locke's pursuit. But Locke is a fuel-saving lamp, and if the masked man kidnaps someone else, he may be able to turn a blind eye, but he is tied to Alice, which is his woman. If Locke doesn't even care about this, is he still a man? In a few breaths, Locke's super bouncing force made him easily catch up with the masked man. "Quickly put her down, or I will smash your corpse into 10,000 pieces." Locke jumped and appeared directly in front of the masked man, and then turned his head to stare angrily at the masked man. The masked man didn't seem to expect Locke's speed to be so fast, but he was shocked, but he grabbed Alice's neck with one hand, and then said coldly, "If I don't let go, what can you do for me?" Quote, "You look for death." Locke erupted with anger, and then he planned to make a move. But at this moment, he saw a yellowish gas quickly drifting out from the masked man's body, and then wrapped around Alice's body. "You can take a step forward, but my poisonous gas is not a joke. As long as she is contaminated a little, I guarantee that she will die. You come." The masked man said with a sneer, his eyes full of disdain. "Mutants, who are you?" Looking at the man's suddenly revealed hand, Locke immediately guessed that the masked man in front of him was not an ordinary person, but a mutant. If it is an ordinary person, he can solve it in minutes, but if it is a mutant with strange and powerful abilities, it is not so easy to deal with, so his face is extremely difficult to see. "Hee, you have a good knowledge, you even know that I am a mutant. Since you know what kind of person I am, then don't immediately kneel and kowtow to Uncle Ben, so that I am happy. When I get on this woman, maybe I will be gentler." The masked man said lewd words rampantly. "I have no grievances with you, why do I want to attack my woman?" Listening to the masked man's words, Locke's fists clenched, and the anger in his heart was almost irrepressible. Chapter 51. No wrongs and no vengeance. "You don't even know who I am, how do you know that you have no grievances with me? Tell you, you have a big hatred with me. I don't share the sky with you," the masked man said coldly, with resentment in his tone, and Locke could clearly feel it. "Since you have a feud with me, then come at me. What is the ability to kidnap a woman?" Locke taunted. "Hey, since you want to die so much, then I will fulfill you," the masked man said with a sneer, and then waved his big hand towards Locke, and suddenly a cloud of pale yellow gas rushed towards Locke. Seeing this, Locke's face froze, raised his fist and shot out fiercely, and suddenly the fist gust directly dispersed the pale yellow gas. Immediately afterwards, Locke did not pause at all, and the force under his feet suddenly flew towards the masked man, and the speed was incredible. Looking at Locke's fierce figure, the masked man's pupils were enlarged in shock, and he immediately pulled Alice back, and then without saying a word, he actually poured a wisp of pale yellow poisonous gas into Alice's nasal cavity. Alice, who was invaded by the poisonous gas, suddenly struggled in pain, and her face turned blue. Boy, you want her to die immediately, just keep rushing. After pouring the poison gas, the masked man shouted viciously at Locke. You look for death. Locke was furious, his figure did not stop, and he instantly came to the masked man. Then he raised his fist and smashed a punch towards the masked man. This punch he did not have the slightest stay, it was completely full force. Since eating the condensing chi pill, his strength has more than doubled compared to before, and now his top lifting power is about 9 tons, and the explosive power of one punch is not much worse, or even stronger. In this way, how powerful the power under one punch can be imagined. The masked man did not expect that Locke would be such a tiger, and dared to shoot at him so arbitrarily regardless of the life and death of the woman in his hand. But regret is too late, the man's fist has already smashed rapidly, the distance is too close, he has nowhere to hide. Suddenly, a casserole-sized fist bombarded his head with a roaring fist wind, and under such a powerful force, ordinary people were afraid that they would be hit in the head on the spot. But what made Locke feel incredible was that the masked man's head was like a cloud of gas, and with the bombardment of his fist, the imaginary picture of flesh and blood did not appear. Although the masked man still flew out upside down in the end, his head directly exploded into pale yellow gas, and there was no trace of bleeding at all. Before he had time to figure out who this man was, Locke immediately picked up Alice, who had fallen to the ground. At this moment, Alice was unconscious, completely unconscious, her face was still a terrible cyan, and her lips were completely purple. Antidote, I want antidote. Locke was anxious, and then gently put Alice aside, and he himself appeared in front of the masked man as an afterimage, and then lifted it up. However, at this moment, the masked man laughed grimly. Zhao, my poison is unique in the world. In this world, there is no antidote now. If there is no treatment from me, in less than 30 minutes, your woman will be dead. Ha ha ha. Quote. Lao Tzu abolished you first. Locke was furious, picked up the masked man's arm, and then planned to screw it off, but at this moment, the masked man's arm slammed, and it exploded directly, turning into a green gas. As soon as this gas appeared, it immediately rushed towards Locke's nasal cavity, and Locke was not in a hurry to react, so he was hit. Suddenly, he only felt that the sky was spinning, and then the vision in front of him began to blur, which was a posture to sleep. Sleep, sleep. When you fall asleep, all the pain will be forgotten. And your life, your woman will be under my control. Ha ha ha, what's the use of rampage by brute force? Having brains and strategies is the king of walking rivers and lakes. The masked man in turn clasped Locke's neck, and then sneered and mocked. No, don't sleep, once you fall asleep, it's all over. There must be a way, there must be some. Locke's brain was spinning. Then, as if he had thought of something, a fine light suddenly appeared in his eyes. The sense of chi can make me feel where the vitality is, and it can also allow me to operate the innate vitality in my body, so if I urge the vitality to circulate in the limbs, then I will definitely be able to force the poisonous gas in the body out, and the martial arts world uses internal strength to force poison, isn't this the truth? Thinking about it like this, Locke couldn't help but get excited in his heart. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately acted. Suddenly, the innate vitality in his body was like a high-speed train, and one after another roared in his body, and then the innate vitality transformed into an extremely agile divine cat, and those poisonous gases running around in the body were annoying and disgusting mice. The fate of the mouse meeting the cat can be imagined. In just a moment, all the poisonous gas was caught by the innate vitality in Locke's body, and finally discharged through Locke's pores. Without the sadism of the poisonous gas, Locke's vision immediately returned to clarity, and the deep sleepiness completely disappeared. Then, in the shocked gaze of the masked man, he slowly stood up. Can you forget all the pain when you fall asleep? You are wrong, there is only one way to really forget all suffering, and that is death. Locke said with a sneer, and then his big hand reached out like lightning, and then grabbed the mask of the masked man. With a broken mask and trying to pretend to be a ghost, do you think you are the Spider-Man swinging around outside? I want to see what kind of ugly face is hidden under this mask. Locke said with murderous eyes, and then pulled his big hand and completely took off the mask. Oh, what an unexpected. I didn't expect it to be you. As soon as the mask was torn off, a slightly familiar face suddenly appeared in front of Locke. This person turned out to be Elf, who had a relationship with him and was kicked by him. Since you have seen your true identity, you will definitely die today. Elf was furious, and his body exploded into colorful gas with a bang, and then quickly wound towards Locke. At the same time, the gases of different colors began to frantically drill towards Locke's 7 tips, looking very strange. These gases of different colors are all part of Elf's body, and each color represents a poisonous gas, and Elf has not known how many people who rebelled against him over the years with his own ability. So after knowing that Alice was taken by Locke, he immediately thought of getting rid of Locke, and the last meeting was deliberately come to inquire about the situation, and since he was kicked at that time, Elf has already sensed that Locke is not simple. Because it is impossible for a normal person to burst out with such a powerful force, which is the main reason why he did not break out on the spot before. He is a very cautious and careful person, and he will not act rashly without 100% certainty. Even this time the kidnapping operation was actually decided by him after thinking for a long time, and his original plan was to kidnap Alice, and then lead Locke to the place he had prepared in advance, and then slowly torture him. It's just that what he didn't expect was that Locke's strength turned out to be so strong, which was completely beyond his imagination. In this case, if he didn't work hard, he wouldn't have a chance. And Locke took off his mask. It was just an opportunity, whether he took it off or not. His killing intent towards Locke was impossible to eliminate. The same trick is of no use to me. Looking at the poisonous gas that continued to drill into his body, Locke snorted coldly, and then the innate vitality in his body began to stir fiercely. Suddenly, there was a loud roar, and the poisonous gas that had already penetrated into Locke's body was shaken out in unison. No way, what is that? Shocked out, Elf's body turned into gas couldn't help but condense into an entity again, and then shouted in horror. Something that kills you. Locke sneered, and then grabbed one of Elf's arms and threw it over the shoulder. Suddenly, a powerful force burst out, and Elf directly exploded out, and finally smashed heavily on the ground, looking quite miserable. After smashing out of Elf, Locke did not stop, but waved his big hand, and the Zontai Meow knife appeared in his hand, and his image also changed into a masked black appearance. Holding the knife in his hand, Locke did not hesitate at all. His feet slammed on the ground, and he appeared in front of Elf like a bolt of lightning. Then, the black seedling knife stabbed out rapidly, stabbing Elf's body, but at this moment, Elf's body slammed again, and the part he was stabbed directly turned into gas. So Locke's seemingly fatal stab could not help Elf's strange body at all. Zhao, just because you also want to kill me, dream of it. My body can be moleculated at any time. As far as a cold weapon like yours can't kill me, I'm an immortal body. It must be you who is going to die today. Looking at Locke's surprised expression, Elf scoffed and mocked. With that, his right arm slammed into a cloud of poisonous gas again, and then this poisonous gas hand smashed on Locke's body fiercely. The imaginary huge force did not appear, but the place where his clothes were hit began to creak, as if it was about to be corroded and melted, and in an instant, it was true, and his invulnerable clothes were really corroded with a small hole. Although the mouth is very small, this already shows that this guy's corrosion poison is powerful. If ordinary people press this hand, that person is estimated to have to return to the West. You really have a lot of means to corrode the poisonous gas, but you can't help me with this ability. Locke's face was ugly, and then he grabbed the knife and stabbed Elf's body again. As before, Elf gasified again to avoid Locke's knife, but at this moment, a purple lightning bolt burst out from the Zontai Meow knife. Suddenly, Dao lightning wrapped Elf's entire body like a python, and Elf, who considered himself an immortal body, suddenly screamed in pain at this moment. And the gasification he was going to perform was completely ineffective at this moment, and at this moment his body was like a broken light bulb, constantly flashing between the entity and the gasification, which looked very strange. At this point, Locke did not safely expect that the use of the power of thunder and lightning was his subconscious, and he never thought that this poisonous gas man who was known as an immortal body was so afraid of electric shock. Suddenly, Locke burst out laughing and said, "So that's the case, your immortal body seems to have flaws too. I'm not afraid of physical attacks, I'm afraid of magic attacks. That's really embarrassing, my knife just comes with the power of thunder and lightning." Quote, You're a mutant too. Feeling the strong thunder and lightning power on that Zontai Meow Dao, Elf was immediately stunned, and suddenly looked stunned. It doesn't matter if I'm a mutant or not, you just need to know that I'm the one who wants your life. Locke sneered, and then the vitality in his body surged wildly. Suddenly, one after another more and more intense lightning burst out, and Elf of Electricity screamed repeatedly. Just now he could still flash back and forth between entity and gasification, but at this moment he had no power at all, and he couldn't gasify at all. As a result, the seedling knife that had been pierced in Elf's body immediately worked, and the sharp blade immediately cut his body with blood. No, it can't be, I can't get hurt. Elf was furious, and then his body jerked back, and he began to desperately flee to the rear. But how could Locke let him succeed? Locke held the seedling knife without saying a word, directly excited the thunder and lightning, and then directly threw the whole seedling knife. Suddenly, the extremely sharp seedling knife directly stabbed Elf's back to the chest, and a perfect heart-piercing coolness came. Hit by a knife, Elf fell to the ground miserably and wailed in pain again. His voice was so miserable that it was like being tortured by 1,000 cuts, which made people unbearable to look at it directly. Spare me, please spare me, I don't dare anymore, don't dare again. This knife did not stab Elf's heart, and as a mutant, he naturally would not die so easily. It's too late to regret now, from the moment you started killing me, you are doomed to die. Locke ignored Elf's plea for mercy, and he held the Xuanti seedling knife in one hand to once again unleash the powerful power of thunder and lightning. Suddenly, Elf struggled on the ground in pain, and then Locke waved his big hand, and a special steel pistol appeared in his hand. Then he held the pistol and pointed it at Elf, who fell to the ground and struggled. Seeing Locke pointing a gun at himself, Elf was terrified, and his body was flashing desperately, as if he wanted to get out of danger by gasification. But at the moment, he was too weak, and the thunder and lightning on the Zontai Meow Dao were still being released, so he couldn't do it at all, and finally after trying a few times, he gave up completely. You can't kill me. Once you kill me, Alice won't be able to live. Do you want her to die? Seeing that the plea for mercy was ineffective, Elf immediately changed his approach to a threat. But Locke is most unwilling to be threatened by others, and Elf cannot threaten him at this moment. Oh, do you know what's the scariest thing in the world? Locke smiled. Quote? Elf, it's ignorance and self-righteousness. And you have both. You provoked me because of ignorance, and now you think how important you are. I tell you, you are not a fart, the world is better without you. And my woman will be better too. Quote. Bye. Locke sneered and waved his hand at Elf, and then he pulled the trigger. Suddenly, a gun rang out, and Elf's head was blasted like a watermelon. After solving Elf, Locke picked Alice up and made a few jumps to a classroom at the school. Since Yuan Qi can detoxify the poison in his body, it can naturally help others detoxify, and this is why Locke dared to kill Elf directly. Without hesitation, Locke grabbed Alice's hand, and then the innate vitality in his body quickly passed to his hand along his strange meridians, and then poured into Alice's body through his hand. Love. Because Lisi is an ordinary person, the toughness of the meridians in her body is naturally not as tough as Locke's, so Locke has to carefully overcontrol the vitality to wrap the toxins in her body, and then has to carefully squeeze out the body. It took Locke almost 10 minutes to empty Alice's body of toxins. Not only that, but he also used Yuan Qi to clean up other impurities in Alice's body. In this way, Alice will definitely be able to shine more brilliantly in the future. As the toxin was cleaned up, Alice, who was originally unconscious, finally came to her senses. But at this moment, Locke is still dressed in black and masked, so Alice couldn't help but be startled, subconsciously retreated out, and then casually picked up the book that fell on the ground and smashed it towards Locke. Ah, who are you? Stay away from me, my husband is very powerful, he will definitely not let you go. Alice shouted while throwing the book at Locke. Hearing this, Locke first looked strange, and then laughed. What are you laughing at? Hearing Locke laughing, Alice couldn't help but ask with a look of surprise. You admit I'm your husband? Locke laughed as he removed the mask from his face. Locke. Suddenly, Alice was stunned. Immediately afterwards, she threw herself into Locke's arms with red eyes, and then cried pitifully. It was obvious that she was not lightly frightened just now, and this would always be hard to hold on. You're a dead man, it's all this time, and you're kidding me. I bite you, bite you. Alice tearfully took a bite on Locke's arm. Although she said this, she was reluctant to bite Locke at all, just making an appearance. Seeing this, Locke couldn't help but touch Alice's head dotingly, and then hugged it tightly in his arms. Don't be afraid, I'm here, it's already fine. Locke kept patting Alice on the back and comforting. Well, if it weren't for you today, I wouldn't know what to do. Alice nodded heavily and said, Where did my kidnapper go? Alice looked around a little scared. Don't worry, that guy won't bother you again, he's already in hell. Locke said indifferently. What? Listen to you, we still know him. And you, did you kill him? Alice looked at Locke with a shocked expression. Well, the person who kidnapped you is Elf, and his identity is not simple. Locke repeated to Alice what had just happened in a few words. After listening to it, Alice was afraid. The whole person was a little blinded. He didn't expect that there was such a terrible figure hidden by her side, or what kind of mutant. All this is completely beyond her understanding of the world, so that it will be unacceptable for a while. Seeing Alice like this, Locke was very distressed and comforted, and continued, This place is not suitable to stay for a long time, we have to leave quickly. Quote. After saying that, he picked up Locke and planned to go home, but at this moment, there was a sudden boom, and a man in red and blue clothes was smashed in, and the powerful impact smashed the windows of the classroom they were in. The person who suddenly smashed in is not Spider-Man, who else can it be? At the moment when Spider-Man was smashed in, the Green Goblin with his glider wing also flew over rapidly, and then a pumpkin bomb smashed ferociously towards the classroom where they were. Seeing this, Locke couldn't help but be shocked, picked up Alice and jumped out of the window. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the powerful explosion force blew up the entire classroom. The classroom where Locke was at the moment was on the 6th floor, and jumping from such a height immediately scared Alice into closing her eyes. But what she didn't expect was that the feeling of falling rapidly did not appear. Not only that, but she also felt a light breeze on her face. Curious, she couldn't help but open her eyes, and suddenly she saw her man running in the air holding her, and it felt like she was walking on the ground. Looking at this scene, Alice's whole person was stunned, and then she looked at the man in front of her with an incredulous face. Amazing value from Alice plus 999. Locke, who the hell are you and why can you fly? Alice asked Locke with a shocked look, unaware that behind them, a green monster was speeding after them on this glider. She didn't find it. It doesn't mean that Locke didn't find it. Feeling the threat of the Green Goblin, Locke's face was extremely solemn. She originally thought that with Spider-Man's help this time, he could temporarily not participate in the battle with the Green Goblin, although he really wanted to kill the Green Goblin, but after all, Alice was present, he didn't want his woman to be hurt in any way. So his original plan was to settle Alice and then go to the trouble of the Green Goblin. But I never thought that the Spider-Man who was beaten with 1,000 knives was so useless, completely beaten by the Green Goblin, and even if he was beaten, he even hit him without covering his face. Now that it's off, the Green Goblin has already seen his true face. In this way, if the Green Goblin escapes again, everyone related to him will be implicated, which is a scene he never wants to see. Therefore, today he has to kill this tiger no matter what, otherwise he will let the tiger return to the mountain, it will be regret endlessly. But the key is that now that Alice is still around, he can't open it at all, so his face is naturally incomparably solemn. Locke, why is your face so ugly? What's wrong? Alice looked at Locke with a worried look. Alice, I have to deal with a little thing, I'll put you in a safe place later, remember my words, be sure to get out of here immediately, I don't want anything to happen to you. Locke said very seriously and solemnly. Alice saw Locke look like this for the first time, and immediately nodded emphatically, Locke, I will, but you have to promise me that you must go home safely. Quote. With that, she gave Locke a fierce kiss on the lips. Yes, I will definitely come back safely, you and I have not seen the movie I agreed upon, how can I miss it? I know you're curious about my identity now, and I'll explain it to you when I get back. Locke kissed back, then rushed toward one of the school's buildings. In a moment, their figures temporarily disappeared in front of Green Goblin's eyes, and just when Green Goblin was about to use a pumpkin bomb to blow up the entire school building, Locke suddenly appeared. Boom, the temperature is over. I really didn't expect it. The guy who hurt me so badly that day was just a small high school student. Looking at Locke, who appeared again, the Green Goblin stepped on the glider and sneered. As soon as these words came out, Locke completely confirmed that his true identity had been exposed, so his face turned gloomy in vain. Why do so many heroes in the Marvel Universe wear masks? It's not because you don't want to bring your heroic career into your life, so that you have no freedom, but also implicate your relatives and friends, because being a hero is often offending people. And it is not ordinary people who offend. They are all vicious villains. If these people know the true identity of the hero, they will definitely take revenge on his relatives and friends. Although Locke did not have the idea of being a hero, it was naturally inevitable to offend people. Therefore, now that the Green Goblin has discovered his true identity, the first thing he thinks of is to get rid of the other party, because only the dead will not reveal the secret. It's just that the strength of this guy Green Goblin cannot be underestimated, and with his current strength, if he wants to kill the other party, I'm afraid it's not that simple. Of course, if Spider-Man's words can help him, it should not be difficult for the two of them to join forces to kill the Green Goblin. But will Spider-Man help him? Locke was very suspicious of this, and judging from the brief contact they had just had on stage, Pete Parker's nerves were too sensitive. If he appears in front of Spider-Man in his current appearance, with that guy's sensitive nerves, I am afraid that not only will he not help him, but he may also be hit as a big villain. If that's the case, it's going to hurt. Therefore, in order to avoid this painful situation, Locke very consciously believes that it is better to rely on his own good. On your own what? Of course, it is strength, and how to quickly improve strength. Locke immediately set his sights on the physical enhancer. If it was before, he would definitely be reluctant, because he planned to upgrade this strengthening potion continuously, but since watching the video screen in the USB drive, he knew that his father had left him a super soldier serum in a secret place, so he naturally had no worries. Although the fitness enhancer made by Osborn Enterprise is not perfect and has unimaginable side effects, Locke, who has an infinite upgrade system, is not much worried. Because no matter how inferior things reach his hands, they can turn decay into magic. Of course, the premise is that there must be enough praise points, and now Locke just has hundreds of thousands of praise values waiting for him to spend. Now is the time to improve his strength. As long as he upgrades the strengthening potion by 2 levels, he can completely take it. Thinking like this, he immediately clicked on the pattern of the physical enhancement potion in the system's backpack. Suddenly, a piece of text jumped out. As the human body enhancement potion, Blue LV3, upgraded. Upgrading to LV4 requires 20,000 praise points, and the efficacy is plus 50% and the side effects are minus 50%. Quote. Upgrade. Locke immediately chose to upgrade, and suddenly the potion pattern in the system's backpack flashed. As a result, the strengthening agent that was originally LV3 in Locke's eyes became LV4. Seeing this, Locke nodded with satisfaction, and then he did not pause for too long, and clicked on the potion again. Human Body Enhancer, Blue LV4, is it upgraded? Upgrading to LV5 requires 30,000 praise points, and the efficacy is plus 50% after the upgrade, and the side effects are completely eliminated. Quote. Looking at the complete elimination of a few words, Locke was so excited that he almost cried, and then he directly chose yes without thinking. In an instant, the human body strengthening potion was upgraded to the level of LV5, and looking at this new and perfect potion, Locke couldn't help but burst into flames. Now, as long as he takes this thing, then his strength will definitely be able to increase greatly, and it is difficult to say how much it can be enhanced. But no matter how much, it should be more than enough to deal with the Green Goblin. Just as he was thinking this, the Green Goblin laughed and said, "Boy, are you scared stupid? If you don't say a word, then I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Today I will have to avenge the day's sword." Quote. After saying that, the Green Goblin laughed wildly and wantonly, and then he stepped on the glider and flew towards Locke rapidly, and suddenly 2 miniature machine guns clicked towards Locke and fired non-stop. Seeing this, Locke's eyes froze, and holding the Schwanti Meow knife was a fierce knife. Break the front. The first form of the 8 Wilderness 6 combined sword method was easily used, and suddenly a huge purple lightning bolt flew towards the Green Devil with the power of a broken bamboo. Facing the galloping horse train, the Green Demon sneered, then raised his hand and pointed towards Locke, only to see a device like a blower suddenly appear at his wrist. Immediately afterwards, Locke heard a piercing roar, and then a huge shock wave burst out from the device, and the air of the powerful shock wave was distorted, which showed how powerful this power was. The invisible shock wave that exploded streaked through the air, and finally collided ferociously with Locke's slashed match. Suddenly, a rumbling explosion resounded through the heavens and earth, and then Locke was shocked to find that the training he had cut out had been disintegrated in this way. HMPH, I just ate the loss of this knife of yours that day, do you think I will eat it again? In order to deal with you boy, I have spent a lot of effort to improve my equipment, I see how you still bounce today. The Green Goblin said with a sneer, his tone full of pride. But in the face of Green Goblin's contempt, Locke didn't pay attention to it at all, but opened his mouth to say something. But the Green Goblin didn't give him a chance at all, and seeing that the horse that Locke had cast was shattered, the Green Goblin continued to raise his finger to Locke, as if he wanted to bombard Locke with a shockwave. But at this moment, suddenly with a bang, a small spider web flew over rapidly, and then blocked the mouth of the blower. Seeing this, the Green Devil couldn't help but be stunned, and his face was confused. Before he could react, Spider-Man swung over quickly, and then kicked him out. Finally, the Green Goblin smashed into the classroom not far away, looking quite funny. At this time, Locke shook his head, and then muttered, I actually want to tell you that there is someone behind you, you are stupid. Quote. With the participation of Spider-Man, Locke immediately had a gap period, so Locke naturally would not miss the opportunity. So, he immediately took out the upgraded strengthening potion and poured it into his mouth. With the infusion of the potion, all of a sudden, Locke began to tremble in pain, and his expression looked extremely hideous. This is not to blame Locke's exaggeration, this thing is really difficult to drink, even worse than the most bitter Chinese medicine he has ever drunk. Not only that, but the entrance of the potion is like the entrance of a flame. Suddenly, the veins of the limbs from his mouth to his body seemed to be burned by fire, and the pain was like enduring the most cruel torture in the world. It is no wonder that this kind of medicinal experiment has the risk of death, just this kind of pain, if it is not for people with strong endurance and willpower, it is impossible to survive at all. He actually didn't know that if ordinary people took this potion, it would be impossible to reach his current level. Physical enhancers will exert different effects depending on the physical condition of the user, and there is no specific data on how much difference in effect is. However, one thing is certain, a body like Locke who has taken the Essence Cleansing Pill to reach the Essence Cleansing Pill must have a much better effect than ordinary people. This reason is very simple, just like two sponges, one is covered with dirt and oil, the other is clean and tidy, so there is definitely a gap between the two sponges in water absorption. The body that has been baptized by the Essence Cleansing Pill is a clean sponge, with broad and strong limbs and clean and tidy, so its carrying capacity is naturally larger and its absorption is naturally better. The ordinary body is the sponge stained with oil, although it can also absorb some of the medicinal properties, but it is much worse than the baptized body. In addition, the physical enhancement potion taken by Locke was still upgraded by him using the infinite upgrade system, although it was not perfect, but at least there were no toxic side effects, and the effect was twice as good as before. It can be seen that drinking this thing will cause such powerful changes to Locke's body. In a cry of pain, the muscles of Locke's body swelled at a visible speed, but his expansion was not inflated like a balloon, but a firm growth. At the same time, his height also began to slowly rise under the stimulation of the medicinal effect. He originally had a height of 1 meter 8. This height is not short in the Omi country, but if you want to say tall, it is definitely not a lot. And at this moment, with the effect of the medicinal effect, he has grown 5 centimeters, reaching the level of 1 meter 85. Such a height combined with the extremely explosive muscles of his whole body, it is really powerful and domineering. After a few minutes, the effect of the fitness enhancer finally stopped. Suddenly, the heart-wrenching pain disappeared, and instead appeared an explosive feeling full of power throughout the body. At this moment, although Locke's muscles are stronger than before, he feels that his body is lighter and more relaxed. It's as if his previous self was tied with layers of heavy shackles, which made him restrained all the time, but now he seems to have lifted some of the shackles, so that he feels a sense of relief and freedom. Then, he clenched his fists tightly, and suddenly a crackling bone explosion suddenly sounded, which sounded very terrifying. At this moment, he felt that his punch seemed to be able to penetrate the heaven and earth. Of course, Locke knew that this was because his power suddenly skyrocketed, and the illusion created by this could not be taken seriously. Although this is an illusion, it also reflects that his strength at this moment has indeed reached an astonishing level. Subconsciously brought up the personal attribute interface. Host: Sherlock. Power: 2539. Constitution: 2529. Agility: 2527. Wisdom: 2538. Amazing value: 106,221. Looking at the personal attributes displayed in front of his eyes, Locke couldn't help but widen his eyes, and his mouth turned into an O shape. Don't blame Locke's exaggerated reaction, it's really because the growth of attributes is too exaggerated. You must know that before that, the average value of his attributes was about 200. Even if it is 200, the combat effectiveness is already 20 times stronger than ordinary people, and now it has directly skyrocketed to more than 2,500, which is an increase of 11 times on the original basis. According to this ratio, the power he can now punch can almost reach 100 tons. What a power, what a concept! One punch of 100 tons. This power is currently only able to reach the green fat Hulk, which means that the destructive power he can now cause is comparable to that of the Hulk. How could he not be shocked when he thought of this? And after the shock, it was unparalleled ecstasy. With the current strength, even if he did not rely on the equipment on his body, he could completely block the shooting of bullets, even shelling. And at this moment, the Green Goblin once again gained the upper hand and threw Spider-Man out fiercely. At this moment, Spider-Man looks extremely miserable. His red and blue tights are torn in many places, which are all made by Green Goblins throwing knife bombs and pumpkin bombs. Wisps of blood flowed through these wounds, soaking Spider-Man's entire tights. But even so, he still did not lower his head at this, but desperately shot at the Green Devil. I have to say that this spirit is really precious. But after teaching Locke once, the Green Goblin specially upgraded his equipment, so that the Green Goblin at this moment is much stronger than the Green Goblin in the movie. So no matter how desperately Spider-Man tried, he finally fell downwind, was beaten by the Green Goblin, and then was thrown from the upper floors of the teaching building and smashed the hard ground. This heavy blow made Spider-Man unable to get up for a while. After temporarily cooking the difficult Spider-Man, Green Goblin's gaze immediately set on Locke's body. After all, Locke is the person he wants to kill the most. Without too much nonsense, the Green Goblin threw a throwing knife bomb at Locke without saying a word, and the throwing knife bomb spun rapidly, striking towards Locke with a chilling whistle. If it had been in the past, Locke would have tried to block it, but now Locke's strength is no longer the same. It's just a throwing knife bomb, it can't hurt him at all. Therefore, he didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Looking at the rapidly flying knife bomb, Locke quickly stretched out his hand towards it, and suddenly the sharp throwing knife bomb was so easily caught by him. Looking at such a scene, the Green Devil, who just wanted to shout, couldn't help but be stunned, and his face suddenly became very exciting. Isn't it surprised? Isn't it surprised? Tell you, you'll be even more amazed next, and you have to be ready. With that, Locke shook his big hand, and suddenly the throwing knife bomb in his hand was exploded by him. A powerful explosion erupted in Locke's hand, and suddenly, one after another of the flames completely swallowed Locke like a beast. Looking at such a scene, the Green Goblin couldn't help but laugh maniacally. In his opinion, no one could stop his bomb at such a close distance, so in his opinion, Locke was certain to die. But what he never expected was that after a few breaths, the tongue of fire generated by the explosion disappeared, and then a tall figure stood in front of him like a pine. Then he was looking at him indifferently, and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved, as if he was mocking him. This figure is naturally Locke. Nope, impossible, how could you be unscathed? Looking at the breezy Locke, the Green Goblin was stunned in shock, but he was wearing a mask at the moment, and outsiders couldn't see it. I've already said that you have to be prepared. It seems that you didn't take my words seriously at all. Locke sneered, and appeared in front of the Green Goblin with a big stride. Then, he pushed his big hand towards the Green Devil's body. Suddenly, Locke, who had not yet adapted to his strength, immediately burst out a huge force, so the Green Goblin flew straight out like a leather ball, and finally smashed into the teaching building. The powerful impact directly smashed a wall to pieces, and the Green Devil's body did not stop after breaking through a wall. but continued to fly out upside down, and finally smashed through the wall of the entire teaching building before stopping with difficulty. And all this is just caused by Locke's push. If he takes it seriously, what kind of scene will it be? Don't dare to think about it. What happened to you and why are you so strong now? The Green Goblin struggled to get up from the ruins, then looked at Locke with a look of horror. At this moment, Locke was mysterious in his eyes, unbelievable, and incredible, because he clearly remembered that just a few minutes ago, this man was still being chased by him and running around. But how long has it been now? This man actually possessed a strength far beyond him, so how could he not be shocked? All this was simply a strange hell in his eyes. What happened? Do I have to tell you? All you need to do is know that today is your time to die, and everything else doesn't matter. Locke said coldly. Want me to die? I'm afraid you don't have this ability. The Green Goblin was furious, and without too much nonsense, he raised his hand and pointed at Locke. Suddenly, the blower-like device was immediately aimed at Locke, and he seemed to want to use the shock wave to attack Locke. Seeing this, Locke did not make the slightest move. He was not pretending, but even he did not know what kind of combat power he had now. Therefore, the Green Goblin is now an experimental subject in his eyes, an experimental subject that verifies his strength. I see how long you can run rampant. Give me death. Seeing Locke looking at him motionlessly, with a hateful smile on his face, the Green Goblin was completely stimulated, and he immediately roared, and then turned the shock wave to the maximum. Suddenly, an incomparably piercing roar suddenly exploded, and Locke only felt that the entire ground was trembling, and then before Locke could react, the shock wave had already bombarded Locke's body with the power of destruction. Suddenly, Locke's black and bright black hair fluttered rapidly under the impact of the shock wave, and his clothes and pants were pulled towards the back of his body, as if they were about to peel off. But Locke himself seemed to be nailed to the ground, and no matter how violent the Green Goblin's shock wave was, he still stood still, not even moving a step. Is that all? It's boring. Locke shook his head and said with a look of disdain. With that, he took a deep breath, and then roared sharply in the direction of the Green Goblin. Suddenly, a sound wave that was far more powerful than the Green Devil's shock wave burst out, and the strength of this sound wave was like a fairy war drum, mixed with a majestic momentum. That is the innate vitality condensed in Locke's body, which is the mother chi of all things, which exists in all the material activities of the world. It was precisely because of this understanding that Locke suddenly concentrated his vitality into his throat, and then used this sonic skill like a lion roar skill. This is a temporary move, let alone the Green Goblin. Even Locke does not know how strong this blow is. I never thought that the power of this move was simply incredible, and the moment the sound wave exploded, it immediately collided with the shock wave cast by the Green Goblin. Suddenly, with a booming explosion, the shock wave released by the Green Goblin was completely dispersed. And the sound wave did not stop, directly bombarded the Green Devil's wrist, and suddenly, the shock wave device carried by the Green Devil's wrist burst with a bang, directly turning into broken copper and iron. Looking at such a scene, the Green Devil's face showed horror, and his figure subconsciously retreated. Then, he jumped suddenly, stepped on the glider, and then one pumpkin bomb after another smashed into Locke as frantically as if he didn't want money. Looking at the bombs falling overwhelmingly, Locke's eyes froze, his big hand was shaken, and the Zontai Meow knife was cut out quickly. Mad Shadow. The third form of the 8 Wilderness 6 combined Dao method burst out, and suddenly one after another invisible knife chi rushed towards the rapidly falling pumpkin bomb like a violent storm. Under such a dense knife chi, those pumpkin bombs were cut in half, and then exploded while still in midair. Suddenly, the flames burst into the sky, and the smoke filled the entire area. In this way, even the figure of the Green Goblin was obscured by gunsmoke. Seeing this, the Green Goblin couldn't help but be overjoyed, stepping on the glider wing, intending to temporarily escape from here, and then return to take revenge after he figured out what happened to Locke. I have to say that he thinks beautifully, but the reality is very cruel. Just as he was about to escape, an afterimage flew past him, and then he was shocked to find that the glider under his feet had been cut in half, and he himself flew upside down like a kite with a broken line. With a final boom, he made an intimate contact with the ground, and under the action of powerful forces, he smashed the entire ground out of a huge hole. Bombarded by Locke's punch, the Green Goblin fell into the deep pit. He smashed out with a painful face, looking quite miserable. Nope. No way, you can't suddenly become so strong. I'm going to kill you, kill you. The Green Goblin roared and climbed up from the pit. Even though his ribs were broken at this moment, he still couldn't stop his urge to kill Locke. In a rage, he endured the severe pain in his body, got up from the pit, and then rushed towards Locke madly. Seeing this, Locke just looked at him coldly, and then raised his foot and kicked the Green Goblin out again. The gap between you and me now is like a heavenly barrier, and it can never be bridged. Kicking the Green Goblin, Locke walked towards him like a leisurely walk. And in the process of walking, he took out the special steel pistol. The grudge between you and me should also be settled, and this conclusion will end with your death, Locke said in a cold tone, and then walked in front of the Green Goblin. Boy, just because you also want to kill me. You don't deserve it. The Green Goblin roared, and then suddenly rushed to Locke, holding Locke deadly. At the same time, a black bomb is trapped in Locke's waist by the Green Goblin using a special tool, which is specially developed by the Green Goblin, and once bound by it, it will be impossible to escape for a while. And this thing is combined with a bomb, it will become a weapon for life, and once hit, it is basically doomed to death. Ha ha ha, boy, you are still too young, bound by my bomb, you just wait to return to the West. The Green Goblin laughed wantonly, looking at Locke as if he were looking at a dead man. In turn, Locke looked at the Green Goblin as if he were looking at a fool. You still haven't understood how big the gap between you and me is, and you still want to kill me by these inferior means. It's really ridiculous. Locke looked at the bomb strapped to his waist, then shook his head and mocked. It's funny that you, when you were blown up into minced meat by my bomb, I see how you still say wild words. The Green Goblin said with a dark smile as he quickly withdrew to the rear. Then Locke discovered that the bomb on his waist was counting down to 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a short time, really very short. In such a short time ordinary people cannot do anything, but for Locke, these 5 seconds is more than enough. At the moment when the countdown to the bomb sounded, his 2 hands immediately grabbed the tool made of special alloy, and then his 2 hands suddenly exerted force. Suddenly, 100 tons of huge force erupted ferociously between a few of his fingers. As a result, the special tool that Green Goblin seemed impossible to open was easily pinched off by Locke. With a pull, the speed was extreme, and then he grabbed the tool and threw it into the air. And at this moment, the black bomb was just detonated. Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded above Locke's head, and Locke stood calmly in place, like a vigorous tree motionless. This scene looked extremely domineering. After easily breaking the Green Goblin's calculations, Locke did not speak. He raised the pistol in his hand and fired a shot at the Green Goblin. With a sudden bang, a bullet pierced the Green Goblin's armor with the power of destructiveness, and then the hot warhead plunged into the Green Goblin's body. Hit by a shot, the Green Goblin covered his wound and fell to the ground. Locke ignored his screams and walked on, then fired another shot at one of the Green Goblin's thighs. Suddenly, yin red blood spewed out, and the picture was very bloody. Although the Green Goblin who was shot twice will not die immediately, it is completely impossible to escape, and the current Green Goblin is the fish meat on Locke's board, and he can be slaughtered at any time. The Green Goblin seemed to have understood this, and suddenly his tone suddenly changed, and he began to beg for mercy without face. Don't kill me, child, you are still young, you must not take a crooked road. I am also forced, I don't want this, but I can't control him, please spare me for the sake of my son being your alumnus. The Green Goblin said with a miserable look, looking rather pitiful. And he seemed to be worried that Locke would not believe him, and even took off the green mask on his face. Osborne's face was revealed in front of Locke. Look who I am, you should know me, right? I am the head of Osborne Enterprises. My son Harry is also a student of this school, he is a classmate with you, please spare me for this relationship. The reason why I became like this is also forced to helpless, I can't control that demon, please save me, don't kill me, my son Harry needs me. The Green Goblin cried. However, although his words were good, there was a flash of killing intent in his eyes, and if he didn't pay attention to it a little, outsiders couldn't see it at all. But unfortunately, Locke, who already knew the Green Goblin's nature, had already seen everything, so whether Ruoman begged for mercy or not, the result would not change. Killing him is already a foregone end. No one can change that. Thinking like this, he raised his pistol again, and then aimed at the green devil's head. This shot, he can guarantee that the other party is absolutely dead. But just as he was about to shoot, a small white spider web flew rapidly from a distance, and then hit Locke's pistol, and just like that, Locke's alignment deviated. As a result, the shot that should have cost Green Goblin's life was empty. Looking at the spider web stuck to the pistol, Locke was furious. This Spider-Man actually spoiled him at this time. It was simply unforgivable. You can't kill him. Spider-Man swung quickly and instantly appeared in front of Locke. Oh, no one can stop the person I want to kill. You better get out of the way obediently, otherwise I will even kill you. Locke said coldly. He naturally knows why Spider-Man didn't let him kill the Green Goblin, because the Green Goblin is Joman Osborn, and Joman's son Harry Osborn was his best friend. At this moment, the Green Goblin ripped off his mask to reveal his true face, which must have been seen by Spider-Man, so he naturally didn't want his best friend's father to die like this. But no matter what the reason, Locke can't let the Green Goblin go, and he won't do such a stupid thing as letting the tiger return to the mountain. You don't have the right to kill him. If you kill him, then you become a murderer. Spider-Man persuaded. Oh, I don't have the right to kill him, so who has? You. Locke laughed directly at Spider-Man's righteous remarks. This guy's righteous heart is really amazing, and this is about to fall into the devil. No, I don't either. What can punish him is the law. Now that he has no power to resist, we should send him to prison, not private execution. Spider-Man said seriously. Haha, you're here to be funny. Quickly put away your set, give me a roll, and then talk to me crookedly. Lousy ruined you. Locke was speechless. With that, he raised his pistol and continued his execution. Seeing that Locke ignored his persuasion in the slightest, he was still bent on killing Ruoman Osborn. Spider-Man was immediately anxious. Then, he subconsciously shot Spider Silk towards Locke, trying to stop Locke's action again. You look for death. Seeing that Spider-Man did not listen to advice and dared to meddle in his affairs, Locke's violent temper immediately came up. I saw that as soon as he grabbed it with his big hand, he easily grabbed the Spider Silk shot by Spider-Man, and then he pulled it sharply, and Spider-Man was easily dragged in front of him. Then his right hand quickly reached out and tightly clasped Spider-Man's neck. The whole process took less than a second, and the speed was so fast that even Spider-Man with spider sensing could not react. Since becoming Spider-Man, Pete Parker was treated like this for the first time, and he was actually pinched by the neck and locked his throat. If he said it, I am afraid that even he would not believe it. But such an incredible thing happened, but it really happened. And from beginning to end, he can be sure that he has not converged his strength, which means that the black-clothed masked man in front of him has a strength far beyond him. Thinking of this, Pete Parker couldn't help but be secretly shocked. He knew exactly what abilities he had. Until then, he had always thought that he was the most special one, unique. But now he found that this was not the case. He met the Green Goblin, and also met the masked man in black in front of him, and the strength of the man in black in front of him was far beyond him. In this way, he was naturally secretly frightened. Boy, don't forget how your uncle died. The consequences of letting go of the wicked, presumably you know better than me. Grabbing Spider-Man, Locke said with a gloomy face. As soon as these words came out, Pete Parker, who was caught by him, immediately stood on the spot, and then the picture he least wanted to remember appeared in his mind, making him very painful. It took him a moment to adjust, and then he looked at Locke in amazement and said in an incredulous tone, "Who the hell are you? Why know my thing?" Quote. Oh, how many things do I know? Is it necessary to tell you? Locke smiled indifferently, and then flicked his big hand, and threw Spider-Man out like a leather ball. Under the action of the powerful force, Pete Parker smashed out with a bang, but Locke deliberately left his hand, so Pete Parker twisted in midair, and finally landed firmly on the ground without any damage. Boy, think about it yourself. If you get in my way again, I will have your life on my hands today. After throwing Spider-Man away, Locke spoke coldly, his tone extremely domineering. Hearing this, Spider-Man's face appeared complicated, and he seemed to be struggling fiercely in his heart, and during his struggle, Locke walked to the Green Goblin's side again. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he raised his hand and pulled the trigger of the pistol. and suddenly the gun sounded, the bullet quickly came out, and then hit Ruo Man fiercely on Osborne's forehead. Suddenly, blood splashed everywhere. Ruo Man. Osborne. You. Seeing that Locke actually killed Harry's father, Pete Parker was shocked and wanted to say something, but in the end he looked like he wanted to say something and stopped talking, and then said nothing. For what kind of reaction Spider-Man is, Locke is not the slightest interest. After shooting the Green Goblin, he habitually groped on the corpse, and then in Spider-Man's stunned reaction, Locke scraped the other party's money clean, and then leisurely walked away. Tell me, who the hell are you? Seeing that Locke completely ignored himself, Spider-Man quickly shouted at him. In the face of Spider-Man's question, Locke was too lazy to answer, did not say anything, and jumped hundreds of meters high like a rocket under his feet, and then disappeared from Spider-Man's sight. What a crazy fellow, but one day I will find you, and then I will definitely return today's revenge to you. Spider-Man gritted his teeth. At this moment, sirens sounded, and it was obvious that the police had arrived. Seeing this, Pete Parker glanced at Ruo Man with a complicated face. Osborne's body, and then he raised his hand and shot Spider Silk towards the distant roof, and then he jumped, his body leaned on the swing of the Spider Silk, and the whole person quickly galloped between the buildings. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared. The attack on Midtown High School by unknown people quickly made headlines, and the image of the Green Goblin, as well as his true identity and the equipment were completely exposed. Suddenly, everyone was discussing this matter. Among them, the most discussed is undoubtedly the equipment of the Green Goblin, and many people leave messages on the internet, hoping to get a set as well, so that they can also have super combat effectiveness. And beyond that, some people are cursing Ruoman. Osborne, and the company Osborne, said that Osborne was an unscrupulous company. Not only that, but some people who are not too big have launched a boycott of the use of any products under the name of Osborne Enterprises. And it seems that there are quite a few people involved. Looking at the newspapers that deliberately criticized his father, Harry couldn't help but feel angry. Then his gaze moved to a nearby computer screen, where a video was playing of a black-clad masked man holding a gun and killing an armored Ruoman. Seeing this scene, he shed tears while angrily smashing the computer. Harry, do you want revenge? But at this moment, a very strange, but seemingly father-like voice came from the mirror near him. Suddenly hearing this voice, Harry couldn't help but be startled, and then his eyes quickly moved to the mirror. Suddenly, a green-skinned monster appeared in front of him. On the night he killed the Green Goblin, Locke returned home as promised, and fulfilled his agreement with Alice, and the two stayed at home sweetly to watch a love movie. After finishing the incident, Locke confessed some things to Alice. Of course, everything is something that can be said, and what cannot be said is still hidden by Locke. You said you can ancient martial arts, also cultivated out of chi? Alice asked as she looked at Locke with a look of amazement. Just now, Locke made an explanation for his great strength. He did not mention any essence cleansing pill condensing pill, nor did he mention the physical strengthening potion, but gave a reason that was acceptable. That is the ancient martial art that he has been learning since he was a child, among which martial arts have chi. Once he cultivates chi, then he will obtain combat power that is far more powerful than ordinary people. In the eyes of foreigners, people basically know martial arts, so although this reason is a bit mysterious, it is surprisingly accepted by these Europeans and Americans. Just like Alice at this moment, the moment she heard this explanation, her first thought was not to question, but to look at Locke with adoration, as if hoping that Locke could show him. Of course, otherwise how do you think you survived? I use the chi in my body to force out the poison in you. Locke touched Alice's head and said softly. Then can you teach me? I also want to be as powerful as you, so that if we get into trouble again in the future, I don't have to let you worry so much, and I can help you. I'm really afraid of losing you, and seeing you fighting those villains, my heart doesn't relax for a moment. Alice hugged Locke tightly. Teach you. Hearing this, Locke couldn't help but be stunned, and then an idea popped up in his mind in vain. Since the chi condensation pill can make him awaken the sense of chi, does that also mean that this thing can make others awaken the sense of chi? In this way, if he can get another condensation chi pill for Alice to take, will Alice also be able to absorb the heaven and earth yuan chi cultivation from now on? And innate vitality has great benefits for the body. If Alice can absorb the vitality of heaven and earth, even if she can't cultivate super combat power, then at least it has the effect of delaying aging. This is simply a great temptation for women. However, this thing is rewarded by the system, and he can't get it at all, even he himself has only eaten such a one, and if he wants to get another one, I'm afraid it's impossible. In this way, he can only find another way to see if there is any other way. Seeing that Locke suddenly stopped talking, Alice thought that she had said something wrong, and immediately said apologetically, "Locke, I was joking with you. The ancient martial arts you learned must be a very important secret art, right? This kind of thing must not be passed on. I still don't learn it, and besides, I can't eat that bitterness." Quote. Hearing this, Locke couldn't help but be stunned, and immediately knew that Alice had misunderstood. Suddenly, he scratched Alice's nose and said with a smile, "Silly girl, you think it's a martial arts world, and you can't spread it yet. I can pass it on to anyone I want, let alone my own woman. I was just pondering how to teach you, because the ancient martial arts I learned are best used with Yuan Qi, and if you want to refine Yuan Qi, you must awaken the sense of Qi. This is very difficult, even if it is me, it is a coincidence to get the creation to achieve the current strength." Quote. So that's the case, since it's so hard, then forget it, I'd better snuggle up to your side and be a weak woman who is a little bird leaning on people. Alice said sweetly. Don't give up so quickly, I'll definitely find a way to make it as easy as possible for you to learn. With that, Locke's mind fell silent into the infinite upgrade system. Because when he was in the school theater, his admiration value suddenly broke through the 150,000 mark, and 2 reward messages were sent at that time. But at that time, the Green Goblin suddenly appeared to cause trouble, so that he did not have time to check. Now that the things that should be done have been done, it is just left for him to deal with the system information. Click on the information box in the unlimited upgrade system dedicated to recording harvest information. Suddenly, a text message of who he had received from before appeared in front of his eyes, thousands of them, and Locke's brain was a little dizzy when he saw it. Not caring about the information about the praise value, Locke directly filtered out the reward information. Suddenly, 2 unviewed reward information appeared in front of his eyes, and without hesitation, Locke immediately clicked to view. Congratulations to the host for breaking through the 100,000 praise mark with his own efforts and achieving the achievement of Shocking Little Master, so he rewards the host with the 4th and 5th 6 styles of the 6 and 8 wild knife method, which are respectively bursting, picking rain, and blowing snow. And give a blood refining pill. This pill can quench the blood in the body. Ordinary people take it from now on. 100 poisons, no disease and no disaster, free from the suffering of illness. Cultivators can strengthen the essence blood, speed up the operation of vitality in the body. The same poison is not invaded, no disease and no disaster. Quote. That's awesome. Looking at the text in front of him, Locke was full of joy. This thing is a big baby. Without hesitation, he immediately took out this elixir and swallowed it directly into his stomach. Suddenly, a warm current flowed through his limbs, making him feel like he was soaking in a hot spring, which was very comfortable. Then, he called out his personal attributes and saw that his physique had increased a lot, and there was also the word poison-free behind his physique. Host: Sherlock. Power: 2539. Constitution: 3079, free from toxicity. Agility: 2527. Wisdom: 2538. Amazing value: 106,221. According to the current data, I am completely a blood cow in the game. Locke was secretly happy, and then he couldn't wait to click on the rest of the reward information. Congratulations to the host for breaking through the 150,000 praise mark with his own efforts and achieving the achievement of Shocking Silver, so the host is rewarded with a copy of Yin and Yang Complementary Dual Cultivation Exercises and a Shenyang pill. The Yin and Yang Complementary Dual Cultivation technique is one of the top secret techniques collected by the system from a certain fantasy world, and this exercise is the originator of all the double cultivation exercises, which is perfect and perfect. After practicing this exercise, you can carry out double cultivation with women, so as to take yin to supplement yang, take yang to supplement yin, double accommodation and double breath, and help each other to advance together, which can greatly speed up the cultivation speed of the two and greatly benefit both of them, which is actually a top-level double cultivation method. And such exercises must be backed by a strong body, So it rewards a Shenyang pill. This pill is a solid foundation Peiyuan, the divine medicine of aphrodisiac and bone strength. After taking it, it can ensure a lifetime full of vitality and vigorous yang yuan. With it, there are countless royal daughters in one night, and they are all relaxed, making you confident as a man. Quote. Locke. Looking at the text in front of him, Locke fell into a deep confusion. This text looks very awesome, but why does it always give people the illusion of selling counterfeit drugs? This system seems to have become a bit skinny. But fortunately, the system sent it to him, although it felt strange, but at least he knew that it was all true. In this way, he immediately turned from ignorance to ecstasy. Isn't that what men care about the most? His original physique has already made him very strong in that aspect, but he can be strong. If he really wants to let him a few more times, it will definitely not be possible, and he was almost squeezed dry by Black Widow last time. And today he was squeezed by Alice 3 times, which made him feel a sense of emptiness. But now it's different. The system directly rewards a Shenyang pill, saying that it is guaranteed to make him countless royal daughters, and the golden gun does not fall. This is the rhythm of making him a pile driver among people. In this way, he was naturally excited. If it was really like that, when the time came, he was using it with the yin and yang complementary dual cultivation technique, then the cultivation would be like a divine help. As soon as he thought of double cultivation, his gaze immediately moved to Alice in his arms, and the other party was still saying that he wanted to be able to absorb the heaven and earth yuan qi to cultivate and strengthen himself like him, and this system sent him a set of double cultivation exercises. Isn't this a great thing when someone sends a pillow when you're sleepy? Or is it intentional by the system? Can't manage so much, there happens to be a woman next to her. If you don't experiment with the so-called top double cultivation exercises at this moment, then when will it be? Do you want to live alone with your own palm? How is this possible? Seeing Locke squinting at herself, Alice's face immediately appeared a blush, and then she was a little surprised. What's wrong? You won't pay back. Quote. Before Alice could finish, Locke nodded with a bad smile. It's already 3 times today. It's not good for you. It's better for us to fight again tomorrow. Alice said with some concern. Locke shook his head, and then took out the Shenyang pill. I just thought of something. I have an ancestral double cultivation secret method. Double cultivation secret method. What is that? Alice is not a person. Naturally she can't understand what Locke means by the exercises. It's very simple. It's a way to become stronger that makes you easy and comfortable. How about you have any interest in trying it with me? Locke said with a bad smile. Liar. I don't believe it. Alice blushed and looked incredulous. Hee, since you don't believe it, then I'll let you believe it. Locke said with a big laugh, and then ate the Shenyang pill with a handful. After a long time, Locke, you are so good, what you said turned out to be true. I feel that my whole body is much lighter, and my skin is smoother and firmer. Am I dreaming? Alice said with a look of incredulity. Just now, Locke seemed to have changed someone, and her skills in that area were simply amazing, reaching the pinnacle, allowing her to climb the peak in just a few minutes. Not only that, he also felt a magical warm current flowing throughout her body, which suddenly made her feel warm in a hot spring. It was so comfortable, so warm, that she couldn't help herself, and finally had to sink into it. And in this wonderful feeling, she gradually found that her body seemed to be unshackled, which made her feel extremely relaxed, a feeling she had never experienced in so many years of life. And this is the feeling of being baptized by the vitality of the body, from head to toe, from the inside to the outside, has been completely baptized clean. Although it is only once, it is not enough to wash the pulp and cut the hair, but for ordinary people, this is already a rebirth. It can be seen from this that this yin and yang complementary dual cultivation technique is against the sky. This is completely the supreme divine skill in fantasy novels. No wonder even the tall infinite upgrade system will include it. This is really not covered. For the divine effect of the yin and yang complementary dual cultivation exercise, let alone Alice, even Locke himself felt unbelievable, and it was in the experiment just now that he understood the anti-heavenly aspect of this exercise. It turned out that the world where this exercise was born was a world of the last law, where the vitality was exhausted, and the cultivators did everything in order to cultivate, and one of the gifted people thought of relying on the double cultivation method to use the innate vitality contained in everyone's body for their own use. If he could absorb all these innate vitality, then he would naturally be able to open up a new path of cultivation in the era of the last law when the vitality was exhausted. And this is the opportunity for the birth of this exercise. At the beginning, this exercise only cares about the interests of the cultivator. For the object of double cultivation, it is plunder. It is an extremely cruel method, so at the beginning this exercise was also included in the list of magic skills. However, after countless people's improvement, finally one day pushed this double cultivation method to the top exercises, and became the current yin and yang complementary divine skills. With the interaction with Alice, Locke found that the innate vitality hidden in Alice's body was absorbed by him a little, and then he fed back some of the past. In this way, he found that the vitality in his body became more pure and solid, although the growth rate of the amount of vitality was not as fast as directly absorbing the vitality of heaven and earth, but it was better than condensation. This is like two different directions, one is to absorb refining to expand the capacity, and the other is to continuously quench to make it more refined. Both have their strengths, but at the same time each has its weaknesses. And if Locke can combine the two ways together, it is to learn from each other's strengths, perfect to the extreme. In this way, his future growth rate will be heaven-defying. As soon as he thought of this, he immediately called up the property page. Host: Sherlock. Power: 2540. Physique: 3080, free from toxicity. Agility: 2528. Wisdom: 2534. Amazing value: 106,221. It's just been such a while, except for the fact that my wisdom has not changed, my strength, physique, and agility have increased by 1 point. It's so heavenly. Looking at the personal attributes in front of him, Locke was shocked beyond belief. And at this moment, Alice climbed up again, and then pushed Locke down. I want to become more beautiful, and I want to become as strong as you, so let's fight tonight. Locke: this young man stays overnight at the male classmate's house, what kind of system is this? If he was really discovered by his future father-in-law and mother-in-law, then he probably suffered it. After sending Alice away, Locke wanted to continue to upgrade his outfit, but when he looked at his various attributes, he felt that it seemed unnecessary for the time being. To say that the knife and gun are inaccessible, now even if he does not wear any equipment, ordinary bullets are estimated to be difficult to hurt him in the slightest, plus his current explosive power is 100 tons. Under such explosive power, his movement speed has also reached the level of perversion, and it took him about 6 seconds to run 100 meters before without the blessing of his shoes. Now, he only needs a second to run a distance of 100 meters, and if he adds the speed blessing of his shoes, he can almost run in a few tenths of a second, which is equivalent to 1/3 of the speed of sound. At such a speed, unless it is a machine gun forcibly strafing, it is impossible for ordinary guns to hit him, and after understanding this, Locke is naturally not in a hurry to strengthen his wearing equipment. Wearing equipment belongs to defensive equipment, while swords and firearms belong to attack equipment, and he now feels that he should focus most on attack equipment than strengthening defense. So, he immediately took out the Zontai Miao Dao. Zontai Miao Dao, blue grade 55-2, hardness 1330, sharpness 1457.3, lightning attribute plus 1.5. Upgrade or not? Upgrading to blue LV3 costs 20,000 praise points, plus 30% hardness, plus 30% sharpness, plus 30% attribute points, and a chance to awaken an extra ability. Quote: attribute point plus. How many meanings are there? Could it be that after the upgrade, the lightning attribute of this knife can still be added again? Looking at the text in front of him, Locke looked confused. Leave him alone, just try it. Locke pouted, looking indifferent. Now 20,000 likes is nothing for him at all. The key is that he has clearly found his future development direction, so if he really lacks the surprise value, he also has a way to earn it. With food in his hand, he is naturally full of confidence, and the praise value is used to strengthen himself, and he will not value it as much as money. In this way, it is natural to squander as much as you want. Without much thought, I directly clicked to upgrade. Zontai Miao Dao, blue grade 55-3, hardness 1729, sharpness 1894.5, lightning attribute plus 2. That's it, I didn't even awaken the extra ability, this luck is bad. Locke said with a sigh. Spending 20,000 praise points only increased the hardness and sharpness of the Zon Tai Miao Dao by 30%, and then the thunder attribute increased by 0.5 points. Although this is not bad, what he wants most is to awaken the extra ability, and now that he has not awakened, he is naturally a little disappointed. Shaking his head, Locke was not in the mood anymore, so he withdrew the seedling knife into the system backpack, and he fell asleep with his head turned upside down. One night without a word. Early the next morning, Alice knocked on Locke's house, bringing Locke a breakfast and a message. That was yesterday's Green Goblin incident, which destroyed several teaching buildings in Midtown High School, and the school had to notify all students with sadness and suspend their homework for 3 days due to safety concerns. Wait until the school has found a spare space before continuing classes, which means that Locke and they got 3 days off for no reason. What are your plans for these 3 days? Alice climbed into Locke's bed and gave Locke a good morning kiss. The news came so suddenly, I didn't know. By the way, yesterday I saved my math teacher Ottilia in the theater. She unfortunately got scratched by glass. The injury was not light. As her student, I have to go and see. Locke suddenly remembered this. Ottilia was not lightly injured, and he didn't know what would happen. It's pitiful. Do you have a way to help her? We are all women. I can imagine the kind of pain. It is not only physical damage, but also a devastating blow to the spirit. If a woman is disfigured, it is like the sky is falling. That fear is unimaginable. Alice said with a worried look. Although she is not a student of Ottilia, as a member of Midtown High School, or as a woman, she sincerely hopes that the other party will be safe. Help her. I really haven't figured out how to help with this. Wait until I go to the hospital to take a look. Locke said and planned to get dressed and get up. But at this moment, Alice looked at Locke with a flattering look and said, I can't wait to see your teacher and say, are you interesting to her? Quote. Hearing this, Locke looked confused. Immediately he remembered his predecessor Locke. The picture of Angus stroking at the photo of Ottilia was simply unbearable to look at directly, but at the same time it also made him a little weak. I have to say that Ottilia is indeed a superb woman, whether it is her appearance and figure, or her knowledge, it is a top configuration. And it is said that Ottilia also has some royal court bloodlines of the Yin Kingdom, which is the royal family and nobles of the 8 classics. It's just that Ottilia has been extremely independent since she was a child, and she has her own ideas, so she is willing to become a commoner and be an ordinary teacher, and she is not willing to return to the luxurious castle. Such an excellent woman, not to mention his predecessor likes, even he himself can hardly resist her charm. If you really say that there is no idea, it must be a lie. But at this time, in front of another goddess Alice, he naturally couldn't talk indiscriminately. How come, in this world, the woman I love the most is you, Alice? Locke said with affection. You coax me less, you and I grew up together, I don't know you yet. In the hospital that day, you got along with the nurse, and asked the little nurse to give you that. Alice recalled the scene of visiting Locke in the hospital that day, and immediately blushed. Locke, that's really a misunderstanding. I and the female nurse are innocent, otherwise the sky will hit 5 thunders. Locke quickly swore an oath, but before he could finish speaking, he was covered by Alice. Don't swear, I believe you, I hope you are fine for the rest of your life, but don't thunder or thunder. Besides, you are so good now, it is normal to be liked by many women, which also shows that I have a good vision, and the timing is also good, so that I can catch you in one shot, and you don't want to escape from my palm in this life. After a morning run, Locke left the house satisfied, ready to go to the hospital to visit Ottilia. Alice watched Locke leave and went home. All the way towards the hospital without hurry. Since his strength has reached this level, he has become more and more fond of this leisurely feeling. After all, that kind of fast running is too simple for him, but the opportunity to walk slowly is getting less and less. Just as the so-called scarce is expensive, Locke's iron rooster is naturally towards the expensive. Before leaving home, Locke had already known through other classmates that Ottilia was being treated at Maria Hospital in Queens, so it didn't take much time for him to reach the lobby of the hospital. It seems that I really have a relationship with this hospital. Looking at the slightly familiar hospital hall, Locke couldn't help but smile bitterly. The Maria Hospital is the best hospital in the area, and it is no wonder that Ottilia was sent here. I don't know if this girl Ramanfil is in the hospital, and if I have time to look for it. I haven't seen her for a few days, and I miss her. Locke looked around the hospital. Then, according to the information provided by the students, he walked to the 6th floor of the hospital. Otilia's ward is 616, which is an independent VIP room, and ordinary people can't afford to consume at all. However, Otilia was able to live in not because she had money, but because the incident had been defined as a terrorist attack, so the relevant government authorities required that all injured people must be treated well. In this way, Otilia was arranged here, and it really had nothing to do with money. Get out, you get out, Lanes, I don't want to see you in this life. From now on, there will be no connection between you and me. You are not my fiancé, and I am no longer your fiancé. Let's cut it off. A crying roar came from a ward on the 6th floor. It was ward 616, and the person who spoke at this moment was naturally Otilia, who was injured and hospitalized. HMPH, you think I'm rare? If it weren't for your good looks and a bit of royal blood, do you think I would have taken a fancy to you as a stone girl? Now that your appearance is ruined, why should I waste time on you? Do I want to marry you home to everyone to laugh at? At this time, another angry male voice sounded. It is clear that Otilia is arguing with someone, and the object of the quarrel seems to be her fiancé. Fiancé, I didn't expect the beautiful teacher to secretly hide that we already have boyfriends, which is really heartwarming. But what's the mess? Even the word stone girl was scolded. This is the rhythm of collapse. Standing at the top of the stairs, Locke listened quietly and did not step forward to take care of things. Besides, this is someone else's own business, and he can't manage it even if he wants to. In this case, it is better to stay on the side and watch a good show. Stone girl, linens, you are bloody. I didn't expect you to be such a disgusting fool. I was blind before I agreed to your marriage proposal. Being scolded by the stone girl, and scolding her is still her fiancé, the pain can be imagined. Oh, did I say something wrong? I've been with you for more than half a year. What else have you given me besides holding hands? Half a year. It's not half a day. Every time I want to further develop with you, you shirk for various reasons. Aren't you doing this to cover up your physical defects? You really think that I will believe your nonsense? What marriage can only have girls? This kind of rotten view that only exists in the third world. You even use it as an excuse. You yourself are afraid that you don't believe it. I see that you are either frigid or a stone woman with physical problems, so what else do I marry you? Waste my time. The prostitutes out there are thousands of times better than you. The man named Lines scoffed. You fool, deliberately humiliated me in order to break the marriage contract. I will beat you to death, beat you to death. Otilia was so angry with the man that she tried to hit the man. Seeing this, the man sneered and took a few steps back. Look, in addition to your physiology, you also have violent tendencies, just like you. I don't dare to ask for it, so be it, don't see you from now on. Quote. After saying that, the man breathed a long sigh of relief, and then fled as if to leave, leaving Otilia alone in the ward crying bitterly. Ms. Otilia, don't cry, the medicine on your face has just been changed. If you cry, tears will flow into it, but it will be infected, and then it will be even more troublesome. Just then, a female nurse and a male doctor came in from outside the door and tried to dissuade them. Seeing the doctor and nurse, Otilia quickly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and then said in an almost pleading tone, "The doctor begs you to help me. There must be other ways in this world to heal my face. Please." Quote. The doctor seemed to have guessed that Otilia would say this, and immediately he shook his head and sighed. Miss Otilia, I am really sorry, we deeply sympathize with your misfortune. But there are too many wounds on your face, not to mention as, even the best plastic surgeon in the world, it is impossible to repair you without a single scar. This is impossible, and there is nothing we can do. Quote. No, it won't, there must be a way, there must be some. I don't want to be disfigured, I don't want to become ugly, the doctor begs you to help me. Otilia kept pleading, and she had always been independent and self-reliant, and she was as helpless as a wounded child at this moment. Lady Otilia, you better recuperate. The best wound repair ointment applied to your face is already the best ointment, and within 3 months, the wounds on your face will be healed, but the scars will definitely remain, and this cannot be avoided. The doctor said and left quickly, afraid that Otilia would pester him and beg for that. No, Otilia cried bitterly, and there was no need to emphasize what her appearance meant to a woman. As soon as she was injured, her fiancé ran over and withdrew from the marriage, and made up all kinds of reasons to shame her, and the damage was as great as you can imagine. His beautiful face has been unable to return to heaven, and he has been mentally hit by his fiancé. Suddenly, she only felt that her life was dark. What future seemed to be far away from her. His life was over, completely over. As soon as this negative emotion came up, it spread irrepressibly throughout her heart. So, her gaze looked out in vain, the 6-story window. At this moment, she has the illusion that as long as she jumps, everything will disappear, everything will start all over again, and everything is just a nightmare. So, while sobbing and walking step by step to the edge of the window, and then first sticking her head out to look at it, she suddenly found that the height was unexpected. It was really high. At such a height, as long as you jump, you will be liberated in this life. When she thought like this, she immediately took the stool next to the bed, and then he stepped on the stool and planned for the rest of her life. But at this juncture, a calm voice sounded behind her. Have you really thought about it? Do you plan to end your wonderful life like this? Quote. Hearing the voice, Ottilia turned her head in amazement, and in front of her appeared a tall and handsome young man in casual sportswear. This youth was not Locke. Who else could it be? Locke, why are you here? Ottilia wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said in shock. If I don't come again, then our previous dinner agreement will never be fulfilled, and the last meeting between me and the teacher will be a farewell. If so, it will be a great tragedy for me. Locke said as he walked over without hurry. Seeing this, Ottilia immediately shouted, You! Don't come over, I'm disfigured, I'm ugly, I don't want my students to see me as I am, you go. Quote. Ugly, can't you see? Aren't you wrapped in a bunch of white bandages on your face? So, who knows if what you said is true? I seriously doubt that, teacher. You just don't want to honor your previous agreement, and want to escape with death. Teacher, you really shouldn't be. Locke shrugged and sat down on Ottilia's hospital bed, his face looking rather calm. Quote, quote. Ottilia, don't talk to me. I am disfigured. No one will like me again. I will never get married. I will never be happy. The pride I said when I left the family will never be realized. Ottilia was not in the mood to joke with Locke at the moment, and the whole person almost collapsed. As she spoke, she put one foot on the edge of the window, and with one more step, he could jump completely. Teacher, you have taught me for 3 years, every time I am bullied by others, you will always stand up to help me, and tirelessly teach me not to give up hope. You can't say that at the last moment, everything is hopeful, but why can't you do it now? Locke said seriously. Save Ottilia, he can do it at any time. But if she is not counseled by psychological problems and does not heal her psychological trauma, then she can also commit suicide at any time, and Locke cannot always stay by her side. You, don't say it, I'm not a good teacher, I can't teach by word and deed, everything is my fault. Ottilia said bitterly, looking extremely sad. That is to say, you still haven't given up the idea of dying, so I'll jump with you. Anyway, my family is gone, I really want to say miserable, I am much worse than you. I have long wanted to die. Today I just met the teacher, then let's go together. In this way, there is also someone to accompany them, and I heard that people who die together will be together forever. In that way, I want to be with my teacher forever, and from now on I will live in hell and be a couple in the underworld. Wouldn't it be beautiful? Locke had a wistful look on his face. What are you talking nonsense? Hearing this, Ottilia looked stunned. If anyone could see her face at this moment, they would find that they were already blushing. I don't talk nonsense, I like the teacher for a long time, I have never had the courage to confess to you before, since it is all over today, if I don't say it again, I'm afraid I will never have a chance. The teacher, I like you, the kind I like very much, the kind that can die. Your fiancé doesn't want you, but I want you. Do you want to consider talking to me about an earth-shattering teacher-student relationship? Believe me, you will be addicted. Quote. After speaking, Locke's figure flashed, and he appeared directly at Ottilia's side, and then held him tightly in his arms. You let me go, I'm your teacher, we can't do this. Ottilia looked shy, and pushed Locke repeatedly, trying to leave Locke's arms, but Locke would not let her go. What's wrong with the teacher? In front of love, career is not a problem. Class is not a problem, age is not a problem, besides, teacher, you are 25 years old, so old and not much different from me, why can't we? Locke asked rhetorically. It's not a matter of age, I'm disfigured now, I'll never see anyone again, I don't deserve you, we can't be. Ottilia cried. So what stands in the way of us is the injury on your face, so if I tell you that I can heal your face, will you agree to date me? Locke looked at Ottilia with a serious face. What the, can you heal my face? How is it possible? Those doctors say that the best cosmetic doctor in the world can't do it, don't make me happy. I know that I can't go back to heaven, I promise you, I won't look for death, you go, I want to be alone. Ottilia didn't believe Locke's words at all, and then squatted down with a bleak look, not knowing what she was thinking. Hee, can it be cured? Try it or not, I have a jar of ancestral repair cream here, which can heal all scars, and in less than 2 days, your face will return to its former beauty. Believe it or not, instead of dying, it's better to try and see. If it doesn't work, it's never too late for you to jump. But when you really want to jump, remember to contact me, I will accompany you and do what you say. With that, Locke waved his hand and placed the ointment that had been prepared in front of Ottilia, and then he slowly exited the ward. The so-called ancestral ointment is naturally fake. Where did he get his ancestral heirloom? It was nothing more than buying a bottle of the best ointment for repairing scars in a pharmacy in Chinatown. Then he used the infinite upgrade system and spent 10,000 praise points to upgrade it to the level of white LV5. After upgrading to LV5, the effect of the scar repair ointment has increased several times, and I am also very lucky to awaken the extra ability of leaving no marks, so it is more than enough to use to heal Ottilia's face. Looking at Locke's back as he left, and then at the ointment beside her, Ottilia wiped her tears, and then she locked the door of the ward. After hesitating for a moment, she gritted her teeth and removed all the bandages tied to her face in the mirror. In the mirror, Ottilia's face was full of glass scratches, and some wounds were edema and inflamed, so her face was swollen and looked extremely ugly. Compared with her previous beauty, this is simply a world of difference. No wonder Lines immediately broke the marriage contract and abandoned me, he should have seen his ugly face a long time ago. Ottilia gritted her teeth and cried. She only knew that she was disfigured before, but to what extent, she herself did not know. But even if she didn't see it, she had the idea of taking her own life, and now she saw it clearly, which shows how painful her heart is. Locke is right, I can't give up hope until the last moment. Ottilia wiped her tears, then moved her gaze to the ointment in front of her. Locke has always been a good student, he should not lie to me, besides, he is right, even if he wants to die, he must try and die again. If what he said is true, then today is the day of my Ottilia's rebirth. He dared to jump off the building with me to die for me. If this thing can really cure my face, then from now on if he doesn't marry, he's me Ottilia. The only man in Russell's life. Ottilia gritted her teeth and blushed shyly at the thought. Then, she found medical hydrogen peroxide in the medicine cabinet in the ward, and then she endured severe pain, took a cotton swab dipped in medical hydrogen peroxide, and wiped all the ointment originally applied on her face. Without the cover of the ointment, the horrible wounds on her face were clearly exposed in front of him, and those wounds were so ugly and ugly. Don't say it's an outsider at the moment, even Ottilia herself can't bear to look at it directly. Swallowing the despair and collapse, she then picked up the ointment that Locke had given her, and then gently wiped it on her wound. She originally thought that even if this ancestral secret recipe in Locke's mouth would take an effect, it would take a very long time to take effect, but what she never expected was that it was the moment this ointment was wiped on. A sudden cold feeling instantly enveloped his face, and at the same time, a crispy tingling sensation appeared. But surprisingly, this itching sensation not only did not make her feel uncomfortable, but very comfortable, that felt like, it was as if the flesh of the wound on the face was growing. At the moment when this strange feeling appeared, Ottilia suddenly looked at herself in the mirror with an incredulous face. Because at this moment, she suddenly found that her originally swollen face like a pig's head had actually subsided. Although her face was still covered with wounds at the moment, because there was no edema, she seemed to feel 1,000 times better than before. And this magical change was like a dawn, shining straight into Ottilia's gloomy heart as night, and immediately filled her with hope. It works, it really works, and it's still lightning, Locke didn't lie to me, he didn't lie to me. Wow, looking at the change in her face, Ottilia cried out excitedly. At the same time, in her heart, a man's figure squeezed in. This man is not Locke, who else could it be? After seeing the miraculous effects of the healing cream, Ottilia was no longer as cautious as before. She applied a large amount of repair ointment directly to her face with her hand, and it wasn't long before Ottilia's room resounded with earth-shattering screams. That voice is mixed with happiness, excitement, gratitude and other emotions. In short, it is quite complicated. Hearing the excited screams coming from upstairs, Locke, who was still inquiring about Ramonville in the hospital lobby, glanced back in the direction of the upstairs, and then shook his head with a smile. Immediately afterwards, a text popped up in front of his eyes. Amazing value from Ottilia plus 1000. Amazing value from Ottilia plus 1 plus 5 plus 6 plus 9 plus 11 plus. There was 1,000 praise points. It seems that this woman was shocked and broken. Hee, followed by so many consecutive praise values. It seems that this woman is ready. From now on, I am afraid that my double cultivation object will have one more. Locke thought excitedly. Ignoring the upstairs Ottilia, who was so excited by the fact that she had repaired the scars on her face, Locke was standing at the front desk of the hospital lobby with his hands in his pockets. Then looked at the front desk lady with a sunny face and asked, "Nurse sister, is Ramonville in the hospital today?" Quote, "Early in the morning, I saw a handsome scum-dropping sunshine boy calling his little sister affectionately. No matter which woman it was, I was afraid that my heart would blossom. And the nurse on duty at the front desk at this moment is naturally the same." Suddenly, amazing value from Ella plus 3 plus 2 plus 8. Handsome little brother, do you have something to do with Ramonville? The nurse on duty at the front desk named Ella asked with the same smile. Well, it's nothing, just want to meet her. Can you tell me where she is? Locke said with a smile. You're not going to be the boyfriend she just talked to, are you? No wonder Ramonville is smiling every day these days. It turns out that your Persian cat is hidden at home. Ella quipped. Locke, you misunderstood. You are Ramonville's distant cousin, and you just came to visit a patient in the hospital today, so stop by to see her. Do you know where she is? Although Locke did think a little bit of Ramonville, he naturally couldn't say so in front of outsiders. He didn't want to ruin Ramonville's reputation, and others still needed to work here, so he casually pulled a reason. Cousin, are you sure? You are so handsome, so tall, so strong. Do you have a girlfriend? Ella asked countless questions in a row. Locke, is this a hookah? Seeing that Locke was sluggish on the spot, Ella reacted that her words were a little too much, and they were very abrupt. So she apologized again and again, and then went straight to the subject. Ramonville has not seen her since yesterday, and our leaders are also looking for her, and I heard that she disappeared without even saying hello. Quote, disappeared. Locke looked at Ella in amazement. Yes, anyway, I didn't see her for a day yesterday, and her direct leaders were angry, saying that if she didn't come today, she would be fired directly. We will also look for her again. If you find it, you must inform her and let her come to work quickly, otherwise this job will be lost. Ella worried. I'll go, then why don't you say it earlier, and provoke me with so much nonsense? You think men want to go crazy? Locke said angrily. What kind of fierce are you? You look handsome. Seeing Locke's sudden change of face, Ella was stunned at first, and then reacted. However, at this moment, Locke had turned into a blast of wind and quickly disappeared in front of his eyes. Looking at the back of Locke's domineering departure, Ella's eyes straightened. Not to mention, this kid is also so handsome. I didn't expect Ramonville to have such a handsome cousin. It seems that I have to help that little girl, but I can't let the leader fire her. Ella said to herself, and then ran out in a fart, not knowing what to do. If Ramonville knew that her job was saved for her just because Locke's appearance appeared, I don't know what she would think. After leaving the hospital, Locke ran non-stop to Ramonville's residence. As far as he knows, Ramonville is currently very short of money, so this job at Maria Hospital should be very important to her. Under such circumstances, how could she not go without saying hello? Something must have happened here, otherwise it wouldn't make sense at all. And as soon as he thought of this, Locke's mind immediately thought of what the hell was the one who wanted to hit Ramonville's idea that day. Could it be that guy as the ghost again? if it's true, see if I don't kill you today. Locke thought viciously, and then his figure jumped, and he ran directly into the air, and the speed was incredible. Ramanfil's humble room, because the window of the room is relatively small, so even if it is already sunny outside at the moment, the inside is still quite dark, which is just like her mood at the moment. At this moment, in her room, in addition to her, there was also a middle-aged man who was bored watching the TV. And Ramanfil, who was originally the owner of this house, was bound and her hands and feet could not move, and in this state, she had been going on for a day and a night. At this moment, she is extremely exhausted both physically and mentally, and if she continues like this, she is estimated to die alive in this small room. As for why she became like this has to start from the day before yesterday. The day before yesterday, she went to the nursing home to visit her grandmother as usual, but when she arrived at the nursing home, she saw someone she least wanted to see. That person was not an outsider, but Grandma's second son, that is, her own Uncle Bob. The reason why her own uncle is the last person she wants to see is because his own uncle is an out-and-out addict who has completely lost his humanity in order to use drugs and can do anything. And she had heard from her grandmother's words that her parents' deaths were inseparable from her own uncle. Therefore, from childhood to adulthood, she hated this uncle extremely much. Once her own uncle returned home, there would be no good thing, and when her grandmother sold her only old house, in addition to her illness, there was another reason why she was forced by this uncle. After the house was sold, her uncle disappeared for months with a large sum of money, when Ramanfil thought he was finally freed and thought he would never have to deal with the fool again. But she never thought that the day before yesterday, she actually saw this guy in the nursing home again. And at that time, he was still reaching out to his elderly grandmother for money, and her grandmother had no money to give him, and this inhuman fool was even ready to do it. Seeing this, Ramanfil was naturally frightened, in order to send off this uncle as soon as possible, and also to protect his grandmother from being harmed. She had to endure her heartache and give him $300 out of the $10,000 Locke had given. Unbeknownst to her, the $300 that day not only did not send away this addict, but caused her a series of troubles later. Just yesterday morning, her own uncle didn't know where to get her address, so he came to the door. And at that time, she happened to go out to work, so she was blocked by the other party, and then she became what she is now. $10,000. You have so much money on you, you only gave me $300 the day before yesterday, you are still not my own niece, you are the same as your father, you are a cheap thing without conscience. Bob suddenly smashed the remote control in his hand and pointed at Ramanfil's face and scolded. You fool, you are a slut, you don't deserve to mention my father. Her parents were an eternal pain in Ramanfil's heart. She lost her loved ones at a very young age, and she learned about her parents through her grandmother's words and photographs left behind. So when he heard Bob scold his father, Ramanfil couldn't bear his good temper. Snap! As soon as Ramanfil finished speaking, he was hit by a big mouth from Bob. I don't deserve it. This is the most qualified to scold him in the world, I say second, no one dares to say first. Bob said angrily. You just beat me to death. I will also say that you are not worthy, you are not qualified. Ramanfil raised his head and said stubbornly. HMPH, your father's dog thing is just a mongrel brought back by my mother from outside, and the others have one set behind the other, and they only know how to please my mother. It was because of him that everything that should have belonged to me was snatched away by him. The situation I have fallen into today is all caused by him. Do you say I have the right to scold him? Bob said coldly, and in his eyes, Ramanfil didn't seem to be his niece at all. You fart, Grandma has long said, it's you fool who doesn't fight yourself, you still mean to blame others for the fault, Bob. At this moment, Ramanfil completely subverted the image of the girl next door in the past, and directly burst into foul language. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you, since you are on the list of a rich son, then hurry up and let him send $1 million over. Otherwise you will never want to leave this house. If you are spending with me, don't blame me for starving to death when the time comes. Bob snorted coldly and leaned back on the couch, looking wanton. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.